Here we go, guys. Saturday, June 28th, 2025. It is BK here in beautiful San Diego, California. Please follow me on social media for breaking news throughout the week on that Twitter machine at Bravo Kilo Actual, and the Instagram is at BK Actual. Getting started right about 11:23 a.m. here on Saturday. Couple quick announcements. I'm doing some traveling like next week, so the podcast schedule might be a little erratic for the next 2 weeks. As always, I hate to miss a day, so I'm going to do my best to get you guys the podcast every week-ish, but next week will probably be Thursday night and then unclear after that, but I'll put that out on the social media, of course. And then also, I had to give a shout-out to my gal Jordan. From your husband, Jordan, he told me you did a half marathon 6 months after giving birth to your new child. So I got to give you that one. And plus, he says, obviously, you did it while being extremely jacked and tan, which, of course, I appreciate and support. So I had to holler at my girl there. Great job, and keep up the great work. And no doubt that child is in for a jacked and tan mom as well. So really good job. Let's get started. How about in Japan? They had an execution in Japan. That's right. Japan does have the death penalty, in case you forgot. But yeah, they put to death Takahiro Shiashi on Friday night. And he was a serial killer. Yeah, this is 8 years after body parts were found in coolers at his home outside Tokyo. It was Japan's first execution in several years. Let me see here. Shiraishi, 34, he was hanged. That's how they do it over there. Works every time, as BK always says. None of this injection nonsense. But yeah, he was strung up at the Tokyo detention house for the murders of 8 women and a man in a 2-month killing spree in 2017. So the cops arrested him after finding heads and other body parts of his victims in coolers, which he had tried to fill with cat litter to mask the odor. Obviously, the country of Japan was shocked by this. Very, very low crime rates over there. And the justice minister Keisuke Suzuki said he had signed the execution order on Monday, but he did not witness the hanging on Friday morning. He said it was Japan's first execution in almost 3 years. He told reporters that this was a unimaginably horrifying incident for the victims, clearly, and went on to say, quote, "In light of this, I issue order to carry out the death penalty after careful consideration," end quote. Executed almost 4.5 years after his sentencing, which the minister went on to say was less than half the time a condemned prisoner typically spends on death row. The victims, between 15 and 26 years of age, included high school and university students. Oh, they also found him guilty of sexually assaulting some of the victims before their deaths as well. So how'd they get a hold of this guy? Well, the cops were searching for one of the victims. Wait, what? A woman who had gone missing after seeking a suicide partner online, writes the New York Times. Okay. They don't elaborate on that at all. They just leave that one hanging. I guess you can. Boy, the Japanese never change, right? Because the bushido, the killing of yourself. If you've dishonored yourself, that's a thing over there. But I don't know if current social mores make suicide like something that's not that big of a deal over there or not. I couldn't say. In case you were wondering, there are currently 105 people on death row in Japan. Of course, the UN and other international groups have called the nation to abandon the death penalty. However, a majority of Japanese still support the use of the death penalty, according to recent polls. Yes, very good. I mean, why would you keep him around? He killed fucking so many people, dismembered them horribly, sexually assaulted them. I don't know. I don't understand these people are against it. And no, it's not for the last time, for all the idiots, it's not about deterrence. Because that's what you hear from the activists here all the time. Well, the death penalty is not a deterrent. No, it's not a deterrent. Because crazy people are always going to do crazy shit. But it's vengeance. That's what it is. And we're removing you from the gene pool, and our taxes don't have to pay for you and your health care for the next 50 years. That's what it's for. I mean, who honestly is going to argue against this guy getting it? Very good. Over to Kenya. They're having protests over there, mass protests. It happened on Wednesday, and quite a few people have died. Like it's up to 16 now. 16 people died and this was one day of protests. Again, I swear to God, it always cracks me up the people here who think it's like the end of days if a protester gets a little whiff of tear gas from the cops, and over there it's like 16 people die in a single day. What was this about? Well, thousands of people turned out across Kenya on Wednesday to protest government corruption and police brutality, many waving Kenyan flags and chanting that my man, President William Ruto, must go. So they started fighting with security forces, who then fired rubber bullets, tear gas, and yes, live rounds. Most of the dead had died from gunshot wounds. More than 400 people injured, including over 80 people with serious wounds. The Kenyan National Police did not immediately respond to a request for comment. At least 61 people arrested, and that the protest took place in around half the country's 47 counties. Oh, they set police stations on fire. Shops were looted. The capital of Nairobi, banks and shops closed down. Rocks and fragments of concrete, likely used during the demonstrations to block traffic, were heaped into piles on the roadsides. Kenya's government had barred all television and radio stations from live coverage of the protests. Telegram, the messaging app, was also restricted. I don't even know how would they shut down the internet? Did that old trick? The protests commemorated the anniversary of massive demonstrations last year that left over 60 people dead. I remember talking about that one at the time. Dozens of people were abducted, interrogated, and tortured in the aftermath of that protest. That protest, by the way, was ignited by a bill to increase taxes. So Wednesday, not only is celebrating that, I guess, they were also expressing continued frustration with lack of economic opportunities, government corruption, and police brutality. It's kind of alarming. If you didn't know, Kenya is kind of considered a more stable, democratic country on the continent of Africa. So it's not something that our foreign policy gurus like to see. Okay, let's do something kind of amusing. I saw this headline and I was like, okay. All right, you ready? Headline: Armenian Prime Minister offers to show penis to Orthodox church boss to prove bizarre point. Okay, you got me. What's going on here? Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan made this proposition in response to Father Zera Ashburian, who is, I guess, a spokesperson for some kind of Orthodox Catholic Church. And the Prime Minister made implications that this government official, Father Zera Ashurian, was not Christian. And Father Ashurian said something to the effect of, quote, I believe that our apostolic holy church must immediately cleanse itself of those false believers, in quotes, who are traitors to the nation, have dishonored the memory of their ancestors, broken the vow of baptism, and replaced the seal of the Holy Cross with the sign of circumcision, end quote. That's what Father Ashurian said, right? So then the Prime Minister, Pashinyan, he gets on Facebook, and he said that he was dumbfounded by this, and he responded to this high-ranking priest using his given name. I guess they're given church names or something. His real name is Katrich Narcissian. So he went on to say, quote, "I am ready to accept Katrich Narcissian and his spokesman and prove otherwise," end quote, assuming that he wanted to show his penis. Oh, the Armenian prime minister previously accused the same guy of having a child and breaking his priestly vows. So I guess he wanted to show his penis to talk about his circumcision. I'm not really tracking this whatsoever. I don't even care. Let's fucking move on. Fucking Armenians. What's going on over there? All right. Something else that was fun. Chinese police have detained dozens of writers over gay erotic online novels. This is a genre in China known as boys' love. Stories written mostly by and for straight women? Okay, I have questions already. I guess this has been in the authorities' sights for some years now. Across China, the authorities have been interrogating dozens of writers, many of them young women, who published gay erotic novels online in what appears to be the largest police roundup of its kind to date. At least 12 such authors were tried on obscenity charges in Anhui province late last year. And more investigations were opened in Gansu province this year. Some of them has been fined heavily or sentenced to years in prison for producing and distributing obscene content. So at the center of the crackdown, again, boys, like B-O-Y-S apostrophe, so plural boys love. It's a genre of romance between men that is mostly written and read online and mostly by heterosexual women. It's originally from Japan. Shocking. It has developed a fervent niche following in China and other Asian countries since the 1990s. I guess it peaked in the 2010s, and all kinds of Chinese TV shows came out of this shit, web dramas, and it launched the careers of some of the China's biggest male stars. But as it grew more popular, state media began to denounce it as vulgar, claiming that the gay storylines could distort young readers' sexual orientation. In 2018, a popular author was sentenced to 10 years in prison on obscenity charges. What's going on here? I'm scrolling down. Obviously, this has led to all kinds of debate about creative freedom, freedom of speech. Well, you don't have freedom of speech in China anyway. So a lot of authors have been very afraid about it, and they're downplaying, they're censoring their own work. They even go so far as to, call it like, oh, it's more of like a bromance in whatever word they use for that, and scaling it down. What else here? In Gansu province, the police may have arrested as many 50 writers in recent weeks. In case you're wondering, Chinese obscenity laws, kind of like ours, are vague. They do prohibit works that, quote, explicitly portray sexual behavior, end quote, with exceptions for those of scientific or artistic value. One author who used the pen name Yun Jian had written 38 novels since 2018, making the equivalent of more than $250,000 US. How about that? But and that was a woman. She was sentenced to 4.5 years in prison and fined twice what she had earned. So fined $500,000. Yeah. I guess China is not a fan of this explicit gay romance, and hence the crackdown. Yeah, boy, the Chinese police, they'll go after you for anything. What else? Oh, I have an update for you. Shout out to my pilots, too, the pilot bros who wrote into me about this. You guys, we had the Air India crash a few weeks ago. It was the one that was caught on film. Yeah, it could take months, of course, to get like the report and definitive analysis. But now a lot of aviation safety experts in cooperation with New York Times, other media outlets, are kind of taking it step by step and revealing key details about the disaster. And like some of you told me, it seemed to have something to do with the wing flaps. The analysis suggests that the plane likely extended its wing flaps and slats before takeoff, did use adequate runway distance, took off from a typical point with a relatively normal initial ascent, but within seconds of takeoff, the landing gear retraction process appeared to have failed, and the plane's emergency power generator was likely deployed. So experts are saying that those failures indicate that the plane could have experienced a catastrophic loss of hydraulic, electrical, or engine power while airborne. Remember, this was takeoff. This was Air India Flight 171 from the Ahmedabad airport. And this is the one that took off and immediately crashed. Killed everybody but that one guy who, again, I initially thought that was fake news, that the one guy, but it appears to be legit. They had one survivor. So they broke down all the analysis, compared it with like past flights, and they're like, okay, no problem with runway length, no problem with takeoff angle, anything like that. But the airplane's rapid descent shortly after taking off raised concerns about whether the slats and flaps on the plane's wings were in an extended position for takeoff. They are typically deployed before takeoff to provide more surface area to create more lift. A photo from the wreckage site did show the right wing slats in an extended position, saying that they were likely extended for takeoff. And they're analyzing soot and burn marks, everything else. So the burn marks indicated that the slats were deployed prior to impact. Let me see what this is. Pretty technical, I know. And then what about the landing gear? If you didn't know, of course, you guys have all heard it on the plane. Soon after takeoff, pilots usually retract the landing gear, right? And remember, the planes can fly fine with their landing gear extended, but the pilots will retract it almost immediately just to reduce drag and get the plane up in the air faster. So you could see in the crash video, the landing gear is visible still. It was tilted. Okay. The tilting position indicates that the landing gear retraction sequence was initiated, but the retraction appeared to have failed in the middle of a process. It has to be positioned correctly in order to fit back into the airplane's fuselage. So all that really says, again, the plane can fly with the landing gear extended, but all that really says is there must have been some kind of issue because they couldn't retract the gear, right? So it must have been like maybe an electrical failure. Either way, they had some kind of loss of hydraulic power. And again, this is a Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner. If that happens, they thought about what happens if a Dreamliner suffers from an abrupt loss of electrical, hydraulic, or engine power, right? Well, there's an alternative power source, which is automatically deployed from the bottom of the jets. It's known as the ram air turbine, and it can also be manually activated. Now, the turbine does not provide enough electricity to power all functions on an aircraft, but it might provide sufficient power to help land a plane in an emergency situation. So they think this thing did deploy because experts who spoke to the media said there was a distinct sound audible in the video, and they think that was evidence for the deployment of this flight's emergency power generator. So aircraft showed no visible swerve. Yeah, it's very weird. So right now, an ongoing theory, because the plane looked like it wasn't swerving at all, and that would mean like if it was swerving, maybe one engine would go out, right? And so then you'd see the plane kind of correct a little bit but right before the other engine can take over. So they're thinking there might be an issue that may have caused both the engines to fail occurred at nearly the same time, which is a highly unusual scenario. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Just thought you guys would like an update. It was kind of a slow news week, you guys, to be honest with you. So, plus it's also the Ocean Beach street fair today. So it's going to be a friggin' madhouse outside my house in a little while with bands and everything. You probably won't hear it, but it'll be crazy later. Over to Norway. Not too many Norway stories, but this was kind of a big one. The son of Norway's crown princess has been charged with rape and sexual assault. A guy named Marius Borg Høiby, the stepson of Crown Prince Haakon, was charged with rape and sexual assault after a months-long police investigation. This is a big deal over there for the royal family. And the crown princess's name is Mette Marit. He's been under police investigation in Oslo since he was arrested last August on charges of bodily harm and damage. So now he has been charged. He's also been arrested in separate cases in September and November. Borg Høiby is 28 years old. His lawyer is denying everything, of course. And if you wanted to know about their royal family, this alleged rapist, was 4 years old when his mother, Mette Marit Tjessem Høiby, a former waitress, married Crown Prince Haakon, the heir to the Norwegian throne, in 2001. So charges against him: 1 count, rape with intercourse, 2 counts of rape without intercourse, and 4 counts of sexually offensive behavior. Other charges are abuse in close relationships, bodily harm, harassment of a police officer, and the violation of restraining orders. Now, he has admitted to causing bodily harm and destroying objects in an apartment while he was under the influence of alcohol and cocaine. Different legal system over there, because then the very last part of the story just briefly mentions prosecutors will determine in the coming months whether Borg Høiby will be indicted. So I guess he's been charged, but he's not been indicted? Weird. Yeah, fucked up rich kid. Over to the UK. Do you guys remember that story from, when was this? This was like a couple months ago? Was it? Or was it? No. This was a couple months and a year ago. A guy in the UK killed that 14-year-old boy with a samurai sword. Yeah. He went through a sword rampage for about 20 minutes through London. And his name is Marcos Adwini Monzo. And the update is he was given a life sentence. I guess there's footage showing this psychotic man shouting, quote, "Is anybody here who believes in God?" End quote. And attacking police officers after killing the boy, who was fucking just walking to school. The murdered boy was Daniel Anjorin. God, he was killed yards away from his house. He was found still wearing his school backpack in the street by his father. This is on April 30th, 2024. Monzo, 37 years old, attacked several other people, including 2 cops. He was convicted of murder and attempted murder, among other offenses. So on Friday, yesterday, during a televised sentence hearing, he was given a life sentence with a minimum prison term of 40 years before he can be considered for parole. He started this after 7 a.m. He started this like right after 7 a.m. He was driving a van and he hit a guy with the van who was walking to work. And then this guy gets out of the van, pulls out a samurai sword and starts attacking him. That guy was able to escape. Then Monzo ran up to this poor kid and attacked him from behind. Somebody called the cops. An ambulance arrived on scene along with the police. Monzo hit the ambulance with the sword and then refused to drop the sword when told to do so by police officers. This is good. You know who the first cops who showed up were? You know what they were doing? They were not carrying guns. Yes, it was some of those cops. The guys who showed up first were carrying batons and tasers. So they chased him. He ran down an alleyway, but then he turned and attacked a female officer and he fractured her skull. Guys, maybe fucking deploy the tasers a little sooner? I don't know. God. So then, after he fractures the female officer's skull, he was somehow still able to keep going entered a house, attacked a couple who had been sleeping near their 4-year-old daughter. The guy was able to fend the dude off, but his arm got deeply cut from the sword. Then he was cornered near a garage, and then a police officer fought him with a baton before he was subdued with tasers. Oh, my God. Prosecutors did not say they believed he had any political motive for the attack. His social media included admiration for Adolf Hitler and belief in flat earth conspiracy theories, but they think he was experiencing cannabis-induced psychosis and had tried to kill and eat his pet cat earlier that morning. Okay. See, they need the death penalty. Speaking of the UK, remember last week I told you about how those pro-Palestinian activists were able to break into the UK airbase completely unimpeded and spray paint all the jets and shit like that? Well, they have made some arrests, and actually they used a counterterrorism law to arrest 3 people over this pro-Palestinian group's break-in at the British military base. And that's a very rare use of such powers, right? Especially against acts of what just turned out to be basically vandalism. The group is called Palestine Action, and the British government announced an intention to ban the group. Yeah, the arrests were made on Thursday under a 2000 law that allows enhanced detention for those, quote, suspected to be a terrorist, end quote. Those powers are usually used against people suspecting of planning jihadist attacks or far-right attacks to give investigators more time to question them. A police statement did not identify the suspects. It was just released yesterday, this statement, but described them as a 29-year-old woman, of course, and 2 men aged 36 and 24. Oh, they also arrested a 41-year-old woman on suspicion of assisting one of those offenders. And one of you guys living in the UK that you corrected my pronunciation on this Air Force base, and I know I'm going to botch it again, but thank you anyway. It's Britain's largest Royal Air Force base, Brize Norton, Brize. I think you said it rhymes with prize. Brize Norton. We'll go with that. And they filmed themselves. They're going around the base on scooters using red paint to damage a couple of military planes that they falsely thought were able to refuel Israeli aircraft, as I went into last week. So, as far as the banning the group, that makes it a criminal offense to be a member of Palestine Action, to raise money for them, to invite support for them, to arrange meetings for them, to display their logo, or fail to disclose information about any banned activities to the police. Orders to ban groups under terrorism laws are usually passed without a vote in Parliament, but some lawmakers opposed to the ban are expected to debate the measure when it was formally introduced on Monday. It's still probably gonna pass, that order, because you're kind of treading on dangerous ground there, right? Palestine Action would be listed along more than 80 other groups that Britain has banned as terrorist organizations, including Al-Qaeda, Hamas, the Islamic State, the infamous Atomwaffen division, those white supremacist guys. So this group, this is the thing. This would be the first time that a group has been, banned on the basis of just damage to property rather than for carrying out like serious violence. And this ban is, it's fought against. There are a lot of people against it. Some left-wing British politicians, some rights groups. Palestine Action says they're going to sue. As a matter of fact, they have a crowdfunding effort, Palestine Action. They've raised about $220,000 US so far to sue the British government. Okay, interesting. It goes on into the law, but you kind of get the gist of it. Now, let's get an update on Iran. Okay, remember, guys, just before I kick this off, remember I was exactly right. The people hyperventilating about World War III. Remember I made fun of them last week? And I was like, that's never going to happen. Iran's a paper tiger. Yes. So I was right 100% about everything, like usual. So let's talk about it, because at first a CNN report came out and said, like, well, basically our strikes with the B-2s did next to nothing. Well, that story's been changing now. Okay, let's start. And again, Who knows what? I don't know who to believe. But the International Atomic Energy Agency at the UN, they do believe that there was significant damage, according to the Director General, right? And this is the UN nuclear watchdog. And according to the head of the UN's International Atomic Energy Agency, his name is Rafael Grossi. He claims the centrifuges at the Fordo uranium enrichment plant in Iran are, quote, no longer operational, end quote. He said this on French radio on Thursday. Now, the inspectors from that same watchdog have not been able to access the nuclear sites since the strikes, but he said in an interview that while evaluating the damage from the strikes using satellite images, given the power of the bombs dropped on Fordo and the technical characteristics of the plant, he said, quote, we already know these centrifuges are no longer operational, end quote. Remember, what are centrifuges? Those are the giant machines that enrich uranium. They spin very fast, supersonic. And these machines are very delicate, very high precision machines. They're vulnerable to intense vibrations like a fucking 30,000 fucking pound bomb dropping on top of it. Now, he did say he wouldn't go as far as to say that assert that Iran's nuclear program had been wiped out, because first of all, he said, well, not all of Iran's nuclear strikes had been struck. And then remember, according to the Iranian officials, they had moved out what they had in enriched uranium anyway. He did not say how far Iran's nuclear program had been set back, saying correctly, in my opinion, saying, well, how can you even calculate that? But he did use the term, quote, enormous damage, end quote. And of course, Trump came out and said that our bombing obliterated the Fordo site. Now, the big controversy kind of was there was a leak of a classified report, a preliminary U.S. intelligence report, which found that the attack had set back Iran's nuclear program by only a few months. Then the CIA director, John Ratcliffe, after that came out, said that the strikes had, quote, severely damaged, end quote, Iran's nuclear program. So the Trump administration, of course, is unhappy with the leak. You might have seen Defense Secretary Pete Kegsbreath. Come on, guys. That's a good nickname. That's a good one. Okay. Sometimes the lips come up with a few good ones. I like that one. Oh, Pete Hegseth and General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, they gave more details in that press conference that you probably saw. Let's see here. Throughout this, 12-day war or whatever, because remember, Israel attacked Iran on June 13th. So UN inspectors were in Iran throughout that, but they were not able to gain access to the nuclear sites while the fighting was going on. And now it's not clear when or if they're going to be allowed to do again now that this ceasefire has happened. And the ceasefire so far is holding. Remember, Trump announced it, and then they exchanged like another flurry or two, and now it seems like everything is like calmed down. So I have a few tabs open on this. Iran's foreign minister also said nuclear facilities were, quote, seriously damaged, end quote. And, you can't trust these guys. Maybe that's a head fake, right? But he said it. Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi. And he said the country's nuclear facilities, yes, had sustained, quote, significant and serious damages, end quote. That is the first official acknowledgement of the extent of the damages caused by the U.S. strikes on the 3 nuclear sites. Let's see. He was being interviewed by Iran's state television, and he said, quote, I have to say the losses have not been small and our facilities have been seriously damaged, end quote. Now that paints a little bit more of a grim picture than what was laid out on Thursdays by Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, in his first public statement since U.S. attacks. And But have we seen him now? Because he seemed like the Ayatollah kind of went into hiding, and I didn't check when I was doing it for the podcast because I had too much other shit to do. But has he emerged yet? I don't know. There was like a theory that he had been blown up along with it all. Let's see. I mentioned that these nuke inspectors might not be allowed back. Well, Thursday, Iran's Guardian Council, which has veto power over legislation in the country, did approve a bill passed by the hardliners in Parliament that would effectively ban all cooperation with that aforementioned International Atomic Energy Association, the UN organization, for this bombing. So it's going to be up to President Masoud Pezeshkian, who's considered a moderate, to decide whether to enact that law. Again, the big question, what happened to the country's 400 kilograms, about 880 pounds of enriched uranium? That would provide enough nuclear fuel for 10 bombs if Iran decided to further enrich that amount and bring it up to the 90% enriched threshold. And again, we don't know, though, if those centrifuges survived the strikes. Okay, yeah, and remember, like I predict, Russia issued some statement. We condemn this. So did China. Neither one of them lifted a finger to help Iran. So if you guys want to really dig into it, there's a very good article with pictures and everything else, and very detailed at the New York Times, which kind of describes how the whole uranium to bomb process works. It's very, very illustrative. If you want to go check that out, which I highly recommend you do, the headline is 12 days of attacks later, could Iran make an atomic bomb? And it's basically all the steps to build an atomic weapon, again, with pictures drawn out and what exactly they have to do. So very, very interesting. So go check that out on your own. I'm not going to read the whole thing. So while this is going on, Iran has these leaders, so-called leaders in exile. It's like the opposition. It's like remember when the Iranian Revolution took place in 1979, they kicked out the Shah, who was our United States ally, and more, he was like a secular leader, and he wasn't one of these Islamic nutcases. So since the revolution, there's been like people outside the country of Iran who want to come back and, want to overthrow this Ayatollah and all the rule. So most of them, I think all of them, are against this theocratic Islamic republic. So who are some of the big names? Well, the big name is Reza Pahlavi. He is the son of that Shah who was deposed. He is 64 years old. He lives in the United States. He's called Israel strikes on Iran an opportunity to topple Iran's supreme leader and institute, quote, a secular democracy, end quote. He calls himself Iran's crown prince. He said in a news conference in Paris on Monday, quote, this is our Berlin Wall moment, end quote. Now, his remarks during the war have kind of provoked a backlash even among some supporters of his late father who say that he is out of touch with reality inside Iran, because when he was talking during this 12-day war, he was basically saying, hey, anything that weakens this regime would be welcome. Some people are questioning his claims to legitimacy, the degree of support for him inside of Iran. One Iranian political scientist at the University of Florida said, hey, I haven't seen any evidence of his claims that he has organizational capability inside Iran. I haven't seen any evidence that when he calls for people to demonstrate, people take to the streets. Now, he does have some support in places like Los Angeles. And if you didn't know, LA is home to many Iranians who fled the country after the 1979 revolution. So he's one. And then there's and interestingly enough, there's also a once designated U.S. designated terrorist organization, the MEK. You guys might have heard about them. It's the acronym for their group, the Mujahideen Khalq, Khalk, known as the MEK. Now, they have been accused by their former members of operating like a cult. And yes, they were designated by the United States government as a terrorist organization. They've been kind of on this image rehabilitation tour. They were founded in 1965 inside Iran as an armed dissident group, and they did help overthrow the Shah. But after the revolution, they broke with the new theocratic leadership, who then suppressed this group in a sweeping campaign of arrests and executions. So what remained of them then fled to Iraq, where they sided with Saddam Hussein during the Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s. And many Iranians saw that as a treasonous move. So then the group's ideology, which began by blending Islamist theology and Marxism, had begun to focus on MEK's leaders. Two people named Masoud and Maryam Rahavi. Former members have said that they were told to renounce marriage and divorce their spouses to prove their devotion to them. That's a man and wife couple, by the way. They denounced all that. Mr. Rahavi has not been seen since 2003. Yeah, the State Department designated them a terrorist organization in 1997. That was 5 years after MEK staged coordinated attacks on Iranian diplomatic posts in multiple countries, including the Iranian mission to the United Nations. But the MEK, I guess, renounced violence sometime after we invaded Iraq, and their foreign terrorist organization designation was lifted in 2012. So make of that what you will. And by the way, Trump is claiming that the United States and Iran are going to meet sometime. Perhaps as soon as next week. Yeah, he said that on Wednesday. The ceasefire deal is holding. He told reporters at a NATO conference that he didn't, quote, think it was necessary, end quote, for the talks to produce an agreement with Iran, presumably to give up their nuclear ambitions. So, yeah, we'll kind of keep an eye on it. I mean, it's kind of scary not knowing where that uranium is. I mean, we can detect shit like that, so who knows where it is. It was kind of funny, though, because so you could tell Trump was getting frustrated, right? Because he says, like, okay, everybody fucking cool your jets. And then Israel and Iran kept lobbing shit at each other for a couple more hours. So Trump then decided to drop the infamous F-bomb. So let's listen to this. He's being yelled at on the way to the helicopter, so you don't really hear the reporter, but that's what she's talking about. So he's going to answer this question, though.
They violated it, but Israel violated it too. Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I'd never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Yeah, there it is. The big F-bomb. Okay. And then just kind of a funny story. This was going around on social media. The fucking bumblers at the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department were forced to apologize because they made a social media post that sympathized with the Iran bomb victims. Yeah, it was on Twitter. Moron. So in the original post, because everybody screenshotted it, the tweet read, quote, "Our hearts go out to the victims and families impacted by the recent bombings in Iran," end quote. And then they deleted it because everybody jumped on him. We're like, what the fuck are you talking about? This, and he's talking about the bombing that the B-2 bombings that we sent over. So they quickly edited, they deleted it, and they replaced it with kind of the same, without that language. So then they had to put out a statement the next day where they called the post, quote, "offensive and inappropriate, mister," end quote. By the way, the sheriff is Robert Luna, who is a left-wing kook also. So of course, they were forced to apologize because LA County has, again, a large population of Iranians who fled those crazy monsters over there, and a lot of Jewish people as well. Of the roughly 400,000 Iranian-born immigrants in the United States, roughly 1/3 lives in and around Los Angeles, especially West LA, big time. And by the way, LA is also home to more than 500,000 Jews. So, what can't you? Who are they handing control? Like, I'm fascinated. Like, who controls the social media account of these large, especially law enforcement? Like, what are you doing? And it's none of your fucking business anyway. Like, why are you even talking about it? And nobody's fired. I'm sure it was some like goofball they just hired, some intern. But dude, is there no oversight? Did anybody get fired for that? Anybody have to apologize for that? Anybody get suspended for that? We don't know because they didn't say. Oh, and then, so out of all of this, an interesting thing came up because you saw on social media, this was another thing. Everybody was like, well, wait a minute. How can a president just do this? He's got to go to Congress. And as we know, presidents haven't gone to Congress for shit as far as making strikes overseas in many, many years, right? I mean, Obama did it. Trump did it the first time. Bush did it, of course. Because they have that use of military force that was passed after 9/11. So now Congress, because it's Trump, they're all of a sudden scrambling to take a look at that thing again. And it was blocked in the Senate. They blocked it yesterday, a Democratic resolution that would have forced Trump to go to Congress for approval of military action against Iran. It was 53-47, the vote, mostly along party lines. This was sponsored by Senator Tim Kaine, Democrat of Virginia. Remember when he ran for vice president? But you guys don't remember who he even was. He invoked the War Powers Act, which is a 1973 law aimed at limiting a president's power to enter an armed conflict without the consent of Congress. It would have required the White House to notify lawmakers and seek the approval of both the House and Senate before U.S. forces could take further military action against Iran. So, I'm not going to pretend I know enough about this, but I remember it's been in use for a long time and everybody's done it. Not saying that's right or anything, but sometimes also you can't really wait for Congress to have a debate about shit. I get having a debate. If you're going to send troops into harm's way, sure. If you're going to send a couple bombs, B-2 bombers that can't possibly be touched by Iran's air defenses to make a big-ass 36-hour round-trip journey, shout out to them, by the way, for that. That was incredible. You really need to go to Congress for that? So that War Powers Act, I mentioned that. The act that was intended to limit the president, right? How did that come about? That was enacted after the Vietnam War, because of the huge public backlash to this prolonged conflict, right? That had broad support in Congress and to limit a president's power to wage war. So Congress, when they voted on that, they almost all voted for it. And Nixon said he was going to veto it because Nixon at the time deployed American troops. Like, we had them in Vietnam already, and then Nixon started pushing them across the border into South Vietnam and then into Cambodia. So lawmakers had enough votes to override a veto from Nixon on that one. So, here's what I wanted to do. Congress has not formally issued a declaration of war since World War II. But after the September 11th attacks, that kind of changed a little bit. First of all, they designated President George W. Bush the ability to direct military force against those responsible for September 11th and any groups that harbored them. Another authorization passed by Congress was passed a year after that first one. That authorized the president to oversee the use of force against Iraq because we had concerns about those weapons of mass destruction. And so, in the years since that, all administrations have used those two authorizations to conduct military actions. You know, Obama's campaign against ISIS in 2014, when Trump waxed the head terrorist general in 2020, Qasem Soleimani, And also Joe Biden. He approved a 2024 drone strike in Baghdad that killed a senior member in an Iranian-backed militant group called Harakat al-Nujaba. So, there's really no appetite for this. I think it's a good thing that they debate it, though, and I think there's room for a longer debate, especially now that everything's fucking calmed down. Okay. I'm going to talk about the Supreme Court in a little bit, but I want to keep going here. Let me see what I want to do. Oh, let's go to Diddy. We had closing arguments. It's done. The trial's done. The jury deliberation begins on Monday. But the Sean Diddy Combs trial is all done. Remember Sean Diddy Puff Daddy Combs? The music mogul has pleaded not guilty to sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy. So he is being charged still, again, sex trafficking, racketeering conspiracy, and transportation to engage in prostitution. He's saying all the sex was consensual, basically. That's his defense. So the federal prosecutor who gave the closing argument said to jurors, hey, if you want to convict Combs of sex trafficking, that requires only one example of him coercing his girlfriends into having sex with prostitutes. And they gave examples. They pointed one to Sean Combs' infamous 2016 assault at Cassandra Ventura in that LA hotel. That was the one that was caught on video in the hallway and stuff like that. So the racketeering conspiracy, the government must show that Sean Combs agreed with people in his organization to carry out crimes. And they said in this case, those crimes are drug distribution, kidnapping, arson, bribery, sex trafficking, witness tampering, and obstruction, interstate transportation for prostitution, and forced labor. Yeah. And again, the prosecutors go into examples of that as well. What else here? Let's see here. Yeah, we'll see. I guess they said Sean's Puffy's hands were shaking as he left the courtroom. So really, there's not really much to talk about because the case is over at this point. So jury deliberation begins. That should be very, very exciting. All right. Let's go to, another update. Do you guys remember the story last year, 2024, when that teenager, the Syrian kid who was living in Germany, had that plot to attack a Taylor Swift concert in Vienna? Is this ringing a bell? Well, he has officially been charged now. Yep. And that was, by the way, that when that came out, that plot on the attack on the Swift concert, Taylor Swift had to cancel 3 dates in Vienna. That was going to draw 100, 200,000 people. Investigators in Germany accused this teenager, whom they identified only as Mohammed A. Remember, they have those weird privacy rules over there, of helping to interpret Arabic bomb building instructions and of translating an oath of allegiance to the Islamic State terrorist group for the main suspect in the plot. So he wasn't like the main guy. So some of the charges include supporting a foreign terrorist organization. We don't know exactly how old he is. The initial tip that there was a credible threat against the Taylor Swift concerts, by the way, came from American intelligence. That's according to the Austrians. And the authorities subsequently arrested a 19-year-old Austrian citizen with Macedonian roots as the main suspect. There, they said they found machetes, knives, and timers and chemicals to make explosives. They also discovered counterfeit money and good old Islamic State propaganda in the house. So the authority, as far as this kid living in Germany, he has self-radicalized. The good old self-radicalization. That's right. He radicalized himself online, and he had connected to that main suspect with an Islamic State contact over social media. Because he is a minor, he has not been taken into custody. What do you... That's the stupidest thing ever. He's tried to help a terrorist build bombs. You're not going to take him into custody? You're just going to let him roam around? I guess so. Let's go to, well, I'm talking, as long as we're talking about Germany, it's a funny headline. So the Germans want to beef up their military. I'll have more on NATO and the build up of the military in a little bit. But you know what they're up against? They're up against the shadow of the unpleasantness between 1939 and 1945. Because it's not cool to be in the military over in Germany. And nobody wants their children in the army. So there's a big, cultural resistance to join the army. Nobody wants to do that because I guess they think if you join the army, you're a Nazi or something. But yeah, dude, they're having trouble recruiting, and they're trying. Here's one example. They said that there's a small town in Western Germany, and there's a bunch of kids, playing in go-karts. They're go-karting at a track. And there was a bunch of German army recruiters there, with a couple supply trucks and, trying to show the kids, hey, look at our cool truck, shit like that. The children were digging it. Many parents did not enjoy it. One civil servant said, quote, I think it's terrible that they advertise to kids. No one wants their children in the army, end quote. But they got problems. They got a threat from Russia. We're not going to be their daddy much longer anymore and fund all their shit. So they decided, well, we need our own army, and that's been a challenge. Only 17% of Germans in a recent poll said that they would defend their country if attacked. Oh, my God. It's a nation of cucks. It just is, dude. Nah, I'm just going to die. I remember I was talking to a family friend, a girl. She's in her 20s. And, she's like a beach girl, likes getting her nails done, shit like that. And she straight up told me she's like, dude, if fucking there was ever a civil war, I would just die. I would just give up immediately. I would just roll. I'm just not built for that, And I'm like, well, at least you're honest. So don't bother coming over to my house because I will be fighting from my garage with ferocity. Yeah, dude. The problem is so bad that the country's defense minister is expected later this summer to propose a new form of conscription if they can't find enough volunteers. That's right, a draft. So Germany is committed to significantly expanding their military, or as it's known over there, the Bundeswehr, to 203,000 enlisted people in 6 years. Today, they have about 182,000, so that's not a big increase, and over 6 years. And the experts are saying, first of all, that's too modest of a goal, but they also say it's too ambitious of a goal. The German military was once 500,000 strong, but they trimmed the numbers after the Cold War, and then again after 2011 when the German government ended conscription. They used to have it over there, and then they closed military bases. I've talked to you guys throughout the years about how they kind of let the military just go to shit. Like half their airplanes can't even fly, stuff like that. And they're also struggling to compete with the private sector, and especially in critical fields like engineering and cybersecurity. So they put the price for modernizing the German military at $76 billion US. How about that? But they say the biggest obstacle is cultural. Yeah, they're picking up a gun is like fucking grabbing somebody's dick over there. It's just like it's something you don't do, in public at least. And yeah, they're trying to, they're doing the right things. They're trying to use social media, look cool, and I don't know. Maybe they should just start throwing up old vids of the Nazis in World War II. At war. I mean, say what you will, those dudes were fucking tough, dude. That German military almost defeated the entire world against it. That's not an endorsement of fucking Nazism. Okay, spare me. Now they do have some bright things on the horizon. Last year, 51,200 people applied to enlist. That is up 18.5% compared with the prior year. Obviously, just because they apply doesn't mean they're going to make it. About a quarter of them wash out during training. And the Bundeswehr continues to shrink because they have an average of about 20,000 retirements per year. So if they can't do this, then they're going to start a draft now. Okay. Interesting. We'll see. We'll see. I'm rooting for them, but you have to get past that cultural push. Maybe they just should embrace it, man. Let's go. Well, as long as I'm talking about that, I might as well go to that NATO story, because NATO is now agreeing to a big increase in military spending. This is a big win for us, the United States. And Trump personally has long pushed for the European allies to be more self-sufficient on defense. He's said this many, 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 many times. So they had a NATO summit. It ended on Wednesday. And the European allies they approved an ambitious spending goal. And of course, they have to meet the threat of a militarized Russia. So on Wednesday, after a one-day meeting in the Netherlands, the NATO agreed to raise their spending on the military to 5% of their national income by 2035. That amount consists of 3.5% on traditional military needs like troops, weapons, shells, and missiles. That is up sharply from the current target of 2%. And it also includes another 1.5% on military-adjacent projects like improved roads, bridges, better emergency health care, better cybersecurity, et cetera, et cetera. Because we've always talked about NATO as freeloaders. And so did J.D. Vance, Defense Secretary Pete Kegsbreath. I'm sorry, it's funny, guys. I'm not going to stop doing it. And yeah, okay, very good. As far as there was also a unanimous approval about reinstating the Allied commitment to collective defense in Article 5 of the NATO Pact. That's the big one. That is the pact that says, hey, if any one country in NATO is attacked, all the other NATO countries will come to their defense. Not maybe come to their defense. Will. So that's the one a lot of NATO countries are unsure that Trump would honor. So they always get weepy about that one. Let's see here. Now, it's not all fucking sunshine and roses, right? The commitment to raise spending to 5% is over 10 years, and who knows what can happen in 10 years. Now, Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez of Spain said that before the summit that Spain would spend 2.1% of its GDP on defense, quote, no more, no less, ese, end quote. Some of them just they don't have any money to do it. Slovakia and Belgium pretty much came out and said, like, dude, we can't do that. But it's kind of a diplomatic language, right? Because the memo said that the allies, not all allies, had agreed to the 5% figure, but they're trying to make the United States happy. So at least it's a symbolic victory. Okay. Let's see here. What do I want to do? God, I have a couple more UK stories as well. I'll get to them in a minute. Let me go to... I got a bunch of ice stuff. I don't want to be doing that. Let's go to this French music festival story. It's bizarre. Nearly 150 people reported being jabbed with needles at this French music festival. Yeah, like hypodermic needles. 13 in Paris. I guess this is an annual nationwide music festival they have every year. It was a week ago, Saturday. 145 people total across the country. 13 in Paris. 12 people have been arrested in connection with these stabbings. That we don't know a lot. They gave like these victims for toxicology tests and stuff like that, but they didn't give any details about the people who were arrested. They didn't give any details about what substances the syringes may have contained. I guess this is huge over there. There's millions of people who attend these events for this festival. It's called the Fête de la Musique. And it goes all over France. There's all kinds of events all over the country. But this has kind of been a thing lately over in Europe and other France and other European countries, right? People have been reported being injected without their knowledge or consent in crowded spaces like clubs and bars. A British Parliament report published in 2022 after a sudden increase in what they're calling spiking incidents said that there had been more than 1,000 cases of needle attacks across Britain between September of 2021 and December of 2022. Police data showed that about 90% of these incidents occurred during the evening in venues like nightclubs and stuff like that, but it does happen at house parties as well. This music festival has been an annual event in France for more than 4 decades. Musicians of all abilities are encouraged to perform on sidewalks and parks and all that shit. So this, and it takes place on the summer solstice, which was on June 21st, by the way. If you didn't know what that is the longest day of the year. It's when the sun is out the longest time, sun up to sunset, the longest time of the year. And they have free concerts all over the place. All right. Let's see here. Yeah, they don't have anything about the drugs that might be in these needles. Maybe they just don't know, or they're just not telling us. Also, one quick update. I talked about this at the beginning of the last podcast, that Damascus church bombing. We didn't have a death count at the time, but I speculated it looked pretty bad. This is the Syrian church suicide bombing. We know a little bit more about the detail on that. It was a Greek Orthodox church, and it has killed at least 20 people. The Mar Elias Church in Douala. It's a neighborhood of Damascus. And this guy, the assailant, actually opened fire with a weapon before detonating the explosive vest. More than 50 people were wounded. The attacker appeared to have ties to the Islamic State. This is the first known suicide bombing in the capital of Syria since they kicked out Syria's former dictator, Bashar al-Assad. And if you guys have been listening, you know all about Syria's new leadership. The militia guy is in charge now. They said they are going to restore order, but they still have sectarian tensions over there. And we, the United States and the United Nations, are warning that members of the Islamic State are still seeking to exploit the collapse of that Assad regime. Now, the Syrian authorities are saying they have foiled repeat attack plots in recent months, including some targeting Christian sites. Anything else about this church here? Syrian officials condemned the bombing, of course. And the interior minister of Syria, as somebody named Anas Kadab, said, quote, "These terrorist acts will not deter the Syrian state's efforts to achieve civil peace," end quote. End quote. End quote. That's right. We'll see. Oh, speaking of peace, Rwanda and Congo have signed a U.S. brokered peace treaty. This is actually kind of big news. They signed this in Washington, D.C. also. Again, if you guys have been listening, you know all about what's going on in Congo. That Rwandan-backed militia group, the rebel force M23. And Rwanda denied that they were funding it, but I guess they're threw all that denial out the window because the top diplomats from Rwanda and the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo in this case, signed a peace agreement in Washington yesterday, Friday, to end that war in eastern Congo that has resulted in thousands of deaths and displaced hundreds of thousands of people since the fighting began this year. Let's see. What do we got here? Who showed up for this? Trump enjoyed this one. He had the big Oval Office meeting. He wants that Nobel Peace Prize so bad. So Congo's foreign minister, Therese Kaikawamba Wagner, called the peace agreement, quote, "a remarkable milestone," end quote. But she pleaded with Mr. Trump to stay committed to it, going on to say, quote, "we need the United States to make sure that this agreement holds and that you hold us accountable," end quote. Oh. Earlier in the day, Trump indicated that the agreement would allow the United States to gain access to critical minerals in Congo. If you didn't know, Congo is the world's top cobalt supplier. The biggest miners and buyers in Congo currently are Chinese companies. Rwanda's foreign minister was also there, Olivier Nduhungirehe. How about this spelling? Nduhungirehe. So that's good. This has been going on now in Eastern Congo for like 30 years. A genocide and civil war. Remember that? Began in Rwanda in 1994. I've talked about it many times and recommended many books for you to read about that. But that involved people from two different ethnic groups that fought in Rwanda. Of course, the Hutus and the Tutsis. And Rwandan officials said that Hutus living in eastern Congo had been responsible for the genocide in Rwanda decades ago were still a threat and needed to be dealt with. So there are other people in this conflict. I mentioned M23, but we also have Uganda involved and Burundi. They also have troops in eastern Congo. M23 has a big presence in the eastern province. And let me see here. M23, it seems like they're not going anywhere anyway. There was a separate peace talk between Congo and M23 hosted by Qatar, or Qatar if you prefer. That has not happened yet. So we'll see. But symbolic, maybe, perhaps. And then another important update. I was very excited, guys. What was one of the stories that I was rooting for most to happen throughout the last couple of years? And I kept it updated, and I was very excited. Yes, you're right. It was the Kenyan police force invading Haiti. I was very much looking forward to that. Well, it's been 1 year since they have been there. And the Multinational Security Support Mission, the MSS, arrived in Haiti 1 year ago. And it seems like it hasn't really done much. Money is running out. The bodies are piling up. This MSS was supposed to pull Haiti out of this gang chaos, this gang war, right? The United Nations mandate for this expires in October, and their funding runs out in September. The Trump administration has yet to say whether they plan on continuing financial support to the force. Remember, the United States was by far the biggest financial contributor to the MSS. Gangs still control most of the Haitian capital, Port-au-Prince. More than 5,600 people were killed just last year in Haiti. That's crazy. They still think it's falling apart. Haiti's falling apart. The airport has been closed in Port-au-Prince since November. That was when gangs, remember, started shooting at passing aircraft. And we didn't want to send our own people, so we proposed this mission, the United States, and it took months for the MSS to reach their current staffing level of about 1,000 police officers, mostly Kenyan. It was supposed to be 2,500. And some countries are being, they're not coughing up the dough or the resources, according to some analysis. The State Department was asked about if they're going to continue funding about this. They gave some vague answer. You know how much this has cost us so far, the United States alone? We have provided $835 million in financial and support, including $150 million in foreign assistance for logistics support and equipment, $60 million worth of material and services, and up to $625 million to sustain the mission's compound. Oh, for fuck's sakes. This is just a black hole, dude. The Secretary General of the Organization of American States, whatever the fuck that is, named Albert Romden, he made a statement. The statement read, quote, "Abandoning Haiti is not acceptable," end quote. Okay, well then fuck. Then what? What do you want us to do? Do you want us just to colonize the place? Because we can do that. That's the only acceptable thing for me. If we send our people in there to do it, we're taking everything, okay? And we're going to run it. Yeah. But you don't want that, do you? Of course they don't. The MSS mission commander did not reply for requests to comment. However, he did in an interview last fall say that his team did have some accomplishment. They were able to clear gangs out from the airport and Port-au-Prince's seaport. Wow, big fucking deal. 50 U.S. soft personnel could do that. Not hard. Only 3. I shouldn't say only. It seems callous, but still, out of all the fighting, it's been over a year. 3 officers have died in battle. Now, they're saying the MSS has been, they don't have enough shit. They don't have enough helicopters. They don't have enough surveillance drones. They don't have vehicles appropriate for Haiti's terrain. And they really haven't retaken any community by gangs, and no gang leaders have been captured or killed. Remember the infamous barbecue, the gang leader? They still don't have him. At least 4 massacres have taken place since October, claiming 500 lives. I did cover a few of those. Okay, just another black hole for your tax money. This is fun. Let's come back here again. Let's talk about my disaster of a governor, Gavin Newsom. He is suing Fox News. He'll do anything but his job at this point. And why should he? He's a lame duck. He doesn't give a fuck. The lawsuit seeks at least $787 million in damages. This is 100% in a line for his run for presidency, you guys. That's all this is. Newsom is trying to cultivate an image of the guy who's standing up to the orange man. He's been doing it now for several years. This is his shtick, right? Because when he runs for president, he's going to be like, remember me? I was the guy. I was the guy standing up to the orange man. That's me. So I've proven myself as your fearless leader. What's this lawsuit about? I didn't even hear about this. He said that Fox News defamed him in their coverage of a phone call he had with President Trump this month. The suit was filed in Delaware. That is where Fox News is incorporated. Not only the money, but he wants a court order prohibiting Fox from broadcasting or posting segments that mistakenly say Mr. Newsom lied about his phone call with Mr. Trump. So they also sent Fox News a letter demanding formal retraction and an on-air apology from Jesse Waters. He is a host who said on his show that Newsom had lied about the call with the president. The letter states if those conditions are met, on-air apology, formal retraction, other shit, Newsom will then dismiss the lawsuit. By the way, if you didn't know, he picked that number, $787 million, on purpose because that was the amount that Fox News agreed to pay in 2023 to settle that Dominion Voting Systems lawsuit. That was when they accused that voting system company of election conspiracies, and the company said, well, you've damaged us and defamed us, and they're awarded $787 million. What did this have to do with? It was it had to do with the federal statute that Trump used to take control of the California National Guard. Okay. So the 2 leaders spoke by phone late at night on June 6th in California, which was after 1 a.m. June 7th on the East Coast. Okay. Then Trump activates the National Guard less than 24 hours after the call. So on June 8th, Newsom spoke about the phone call on MSNBC. On June 10th, during a White House news conference, a reporter asked Trump when he last spoke with Mr. Newsom. The president replied, quote, a day ago, called him to tell him, got to do a better job, end quote. So Newsom then posts a video clip of that comment on social media, and he said, quote, there was no call, not even a voicemail. Americans should be alarmed that a president deploying Marines onto our streets doesn't even know who he's talking to, end quote. So he wrote that, according to his lawsuit, to correct Trump's claim that they spoke 1 day ago. Oh, God. So in response, Trump then gave Fox News screenshots of his phone log, because Newsom held up his in his video he made, showing that the original call with Newsom that took place late on June 6th and early on June 7th. So do you see why the time zone here matters? This is so fucking dumb. So then Jesse Waters gets on his show, and the Chion, the thing that runs underneath the hosts as they're talking, stated, quote, Gavin lied about Trump's call, end quote. So now Newsom is going on all the fucking talk shows, and this is exactly what all the lib talk shows, and he runs the same fucking clowns every time. So here, I'm going to play stupid Gavin. Might as well get used to it, guys. You're going to be hearing a lot from Newsom when he runs for president, so let's play it here.
But what I want people to know is, gloves are off. Let's go. Enough. We're going to stand up. Truth. We're going to stand up for American people. We're going to stand up for people that are being bullied. We're going to have the backs of people that are scared. We're going to use our formal authority. I'm proud to be governor of the largest state in America. Again, I've said this before to you, 21 state populations combined. But we're also going to use our moral authority. And the extent we need to, we're also going to call out the bullshit and the propaganda and the weaponization of lies and mis and disinformation on networks like Fox. And we'll do it in every capacity. On behalf of the people I represent in the state, on an individual capacity, enough. It's time to assert ourselves much more forcefully, with character and conviction, and have the backs of people that don't have the voice that some of us have and the ability to do what some of us can do. And that's what this whole case is about. And we'll continue to stand tall, and we'll continue to power through this remarkable moment in history.
Okay. Thanks, Gavin. You know what? I'm one of your constituents, and I would rather you use your voice to fix my goddamn gas prices, which, by the way, are increasing yet again on July 1st, because that's when I think it's a 1.5-cent increase, state tax increase goes into effect. But that's also when that new low carbon fuel standard takes effect, which theories say could increase the price of a gallon of gas anywhere from 35 cents to 62 cents a gallon. Who even friggin' knows? And remember, unlike a lot of things, that is 100% the fault of Gavin Newsom and his appointed California Air Resource Board, who they are not elected, they are appointed, and Gavin Newsom has appointed just about all of them, and he can override them as well. He chooses not to, because their dream is to make the price of gas in California so prohibitively expensive for working people that you all run out and buy an electric car. That's the plan. None of them will say it out loud. That's the plan. Actually, a few of them have alluded. I've played clips in the past. A few of the members of CARB have alluded to that in testimony. And that's happening. So I really don't give a shit what Jesse Waters said about some phone call that may or may not have happened in some certain time zone. Who cares? Who gives a shit? But this is what Newsom does, because now he's not working for Californians. He's working to promote his brand in order to run for president in 2028. Okay? Just that's everything he does now is for that reason and that reason alone. Let's go. Military story. Keg's Breath said he's going to strip Harvey Milk's name from the Navy ship. That's right. The former mayor of San Francisco. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said on Friday yesterday the U.S. Navy was going to rename the USNS Harvey Milk, a fleet replenishment ship that had been named. Harvey Milk was a Navy veteran. He was one of the country's first openly gay elected officials. Hegseth said that the vessel will be renamed for Oscar V. Peterson, a chief petty officer who posthumously received the Medal of Honor for valor during World War II. I mean, it's a better name already. That's who we should be naming everything after, war heroes. By the way, the announcement came during Pride Month. Oh, my goodness. So, let's see here. A lot of the Democrats are unhappy with this, by the way. Harvey Milk served in the Navy for 4 years, including a stint during the Korean War on a submarine rescue ship and later as a diving instructor. In 1955, after his superiors learned he was gay, he was given an other than honorable discharge. And then in 1977, he became California's first openly gay elected official when he was elected to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. I'm sorry, he was not the mayor. He was a board of supervisor. And then he was famously assassinated at City Hall alongside the city's mayor, who at the time was George Monscone. He was assassinated by a guy named Dan White, who was a former member of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. So what they kind of leave out of this article, the controversy, and it's very hard to find details on this, but Harvey Milk had a boyfriend who was like 16 years old. It's like, so that's technically rape. And a lot of people are like, dude, maybe we shouldn't be naming our Navy sailing ships after guys who were fucking underage boys. But again, it's hard to, it's really hard to find concrete evidence. I remember I looked it up one time, and I guess that came out of some book written about Harvey Milk, but there's very few like news articles about it or even talking about it. It's kind of hard to find. As far as Peterson, the new name holder, until the next president changes it back, I guess. Who's that? Well, in 1942, Peterson was serving in the Navy during the battle in the Coral Sea against the Japanese in the Pacific. On May 7th, 1942, he was in charge of a repair party on the USS Neosho, a Navy oiler, when Japanese airplanes attacked. He was wounded alongside members of his repair team, but he managed to close some bulkhead valves, saving the ship, but he died of burn wounds. So that is who the ship is going to be named after now. All right. Let's go to... Oh, I want to cover this story. Let's talk about this one. As you guys know, I recently summited Mount Whitney in one day. No big deal. But how about this? A California teen is in a medically induced coma now after climbing Mount Whitney and then coming into some kind of altered mental state afterwards, and he like walked off a cliff. Only 14, kid from Santa Clarita. This was a father-son went, right? So the kid is Zane. The last name is Wach, W-A-C-H, could be Watch. So Ryan watches the dad. The son is Zane. So they climbed the mountain on June 10th. So that was what, about maybe 2 weeks after I did it? Now they went on a different route. They did the Mountaineers route. The Mountaineers route, if you don't know, you still start at the Whitney Trailhead and you go, but then you take the Mountaineers route, which kind of comes up the top of the mountain. It's like steeper, more technical, more ice climbing. And it's shorter, though. So this was Zane's first time on Mount Whitney. And, you know, the kid, I guess, was in shape. The kid competes in distance running, swimming, plenty of prior hiking, mountaineering experience, right? And so they got to the summit. This is the weird part that I don't get. They got to the summit, and Zane started getting a little altitude sickness, right? Maybe a little dizzy. I had it as well. So they decided to take the easier, the easier way back. And they got all the way to trail camp. And that's like way down off the ridge of the mountain, right? I mean, when I hit trail camp, I think it took me like another fucking 5-6 hours to get to the top. So he's way off the ridge if you look at the map of Mount Whitney. I mean, that's like probably 2,000 feet, if not more, below the summit of Mount Whitney, this trail camp. So the kid had been experiencing these little hallucinations. The dad said, quote, he knew he was hallucinating. He said he saw things like snowmen and Kermit the Frog, end quote. So the kid, Zane, starts feeling better once they hit the trail camp, which is, if you don't know, the first thing you do at altitude sickness is descend, if possible, immediately. So they got all the way down, and they were going back to Whitney Portal, and then Zane starts losing touch with reality again. And again, way down from the summit. So he started hallucinating. And then his dad said they need to stop along the trail because Zane believed they had already finished the hike multiple times over. The kid told his dad, like, hey, I don't know if I'm dreaming or not. He kept saying, like, this is not real. So a separate group of hikers saw this. They contacted search and rescue teams due to this condition. So Zane begins making strange movements towards a ledge that dropped off into a steep granite slope. So the dad grabs Zane. Zane said he was going to the car, which was in the direction of the ledge, but several thousand feet down the trail. He grabbed him again during the same spot and said, "What are you doing?" And Zane tells his dad he's going to get dinner. So the dad is freaked out. And I guess he like turned his head for a minute, and this time the kid walks off the edge of this ledge and fell like 120 feet. It's fucking crazy. So he's now in a medically induced coma. He's got head trauma. Other than that, he's pretty lucky. He broke an ankle. He did break a finger, and he did break part of his pelvis. So, yeah, it's just very weird because usually if you're exhibiting signs of altitude sickness, you going down a few thousand feet, you'll clear up. And it seems like he did clear up, and then he just got worse even with no altitude. So I don't know. I hate to speculate on this as just a kid, but was there something else involved? It's like was he, I don't know, taking an edible or something? I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me. All right. Then I had this one as well, kind of related, another hiking one. They recovered bodies of 3 hikers who jumped in water that was in the Lake Tahoe area, not Lake Tahoe itself. It's a place called Soda Springs, California. It's like south of Lake Tahoe. And they hiked and jumped into a water near Rattlesnake Falls. It's a very remote area if you look at the map. So, again, this was like a waterfall. So when you jump in, the water, if you don't know what you're doing and it's cold as fuck, you can be held under. And these guys decided to jump in the water and they never came out. So 3 other hikers used a satellite phone to text 911 for help. It's very challenging terrain there. A California Highway Patrol helicopter was used to evacuate the 3 remaining hikers. And a dive team got in there and got these guys out. They were having trouble because of the weather last week. You remember the Tahoe fucking storm that capsized that boat? They were having trouble because of that, so they had to suspend the search for a while. But they finally got some guys in there and found their bodies. 50, 59, and 44 years old, respectively. They just, from what else I've read, the one guy jumped in, 2 guys jumped in, and then the one guy tried to help them, and none of them made it back. It's very, very sad. Dude, just don't, dip your feet in the water, you guys. Don't jump into a raging waterfall when the water temp is like 50 degrees. Business news. If you didn't see my posts on social media about it, we are back as far as the stock market. That's right. The S&P 500 is now surged through to a record high. All the losses since the peak in late February have been erased, and we're back. Now, is never had to happen in the first place, in my opinion, but that's neither here nor there. So both the S&P 500 and NASDAQ have come back, or at least to within like 1% of where they were. But yeah, the S&P hit a new high just a few months ago. Remember, we were in that straight plunge. And, of course, never panic sell, as I tell you guys all the time. And I know I added to my position until I ran out of cash. And I hope many of you did too. So it was losing ground because of that broad array of tariffs and we had the kind of meltdown over a period of days. The rally began on April 9th. That was when Trump delayed the steepest tariffs until July. So since April 9th, the S&P 500 has risen now more than 23%, despite all the wars in the Middle East and Ukraine, Russia, inflation, all that shit. So the index hit the record on Friday despite Trump's announcement that he would end trade talks with Canada. The recent rally has been bolstered by some economic data. There hasn't been a huge rise in layoffs. There hasn't been a huge uptick in inflation. And we have lower oil prices as well. So it's still a lot of uncertainty, and we'll see what else. And by the way, the U.S. dollar is not is pretty weak still, which might be considered a sign of waning demand for U.S. assets. Let's see. Anything else in the stock market? As far as the S&P, well, 8 out of the 10 stocks, I'm sorry, let me back up here. Much of the rally has come from a handful of large technology companies. So the 7 stocks that performed the most and gave most of the rise were Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Nvidia, Meta, Alphabet, and Tesla. Those, by the way, if you didn't know, those are known as the Magnificent Seven. Without them, the S&P 500 will still be roughly 10% from the peak. So the average stock moved higher just over 2%. But the Magnificent Seven, more than 30% gains. Okay, well, we'll see what happens with these so-called tariffs and what they're even going to do. I don't know. Let's go. A lot of you guys sent me this. Some whack job who crucified a priest. See this kook? And he's confessing now that he had 14 other priests he wanted to crucify. This was a dude named Adam Christopher Sheaf, Sheafe, 51 years old. He was accused of crucifying an elderly pastor in Arizona, and he confessed to the crime in a jailhouse interview with Fox 10, local Fox station in Arizona. And he claimed to have killed Pastor Bill Schoenman, 76 years old, who was the leader of the New River Bible Chapel in New River, Arizona, back in April. Pastor Bill, as he was known, was discovered dead in his bed on April 28th. His arms were pinned to the wall behind him and stretched wide in the form of a crucifixion. So Sheaf, I'm going to play an audio clip of this in a minute. According to him, this attack was part of a spiritual mission that he titled Operation First Commandment to punish religious leaders who he believed were deceiving followers. I guess he believes Christian churches were misguiding their members by encouraging them to follow Jesus, who he considers a false god. And his goal was to crucify 14 more pastors or priests, and it didn't really matter what religion they were in. So he's currently at the Coconino County Jail. He's been charged with first-degree murder for that one murder. And yeah, he wants to kill a bunch more. So he declined to offer an apology, and he claimed he was behaving in accordance with what he considered to be God's law, and he expects to be redeemed. Okay, so fucking total nutcase. And he's got some kind of crazy tattoo on his neck, and it's Hebrew lettering. So let's listen to this nut talking to the reporter.
Did you kill Pastor Bill Schoenman?
Yes.
Why?
There's 13 tribes of Israel. So what I wanted to do was execute and crucify 13 priests and put one of the tribes of Israel in each of their right ears, which I did with this priest. I put the tribe of Benjamin.
So when did this plan come to fruition? You're thinking about this, you want to carry out this hit list?
Yes.
A hit list.
Sure.
14 pastors.
That's right. Around the nation. To surround the nation.
How do you justify that? I mean, if you're killing somebody or multiple people attempted,
okay, but
how does that work?
It's a commandment to rid Israel of evil. I've done this, I've been in and out of prison, so I know. I've run the police probably 100 times in my life.
So you have zero remorse for this killing?
Not only do I have zero remorse, I plan on fulfilling what I started. Do I think I'm a monster? No. No. I see myself as more of a saint. There's a commandment that if somebody's preaching that somebody other than God is God, we are to execute them and rid evil of Israel. So I'm obeying that commandment.
So I guess he considers himself, for lack of a better word, some kind of Zionist. He's just batshit crazy. You guys got to watch the video. He's got the crazy eyes. And speaking of other crime, that Carmelo Anthony case. Remember the 2 teenagers at the high school event at the track meet, I believe? And the Carmelo Anthony was the black guy, and his victim was a white guy. And so all the race shit came up, right? And remember, following that, when the case first broke, Carmelo Anthony's family had the GoFundMe, and they were saying, no, my son was like assaulted. You know, they grabbed him, they physically grabbed him, and he defended himself. And I said at the time, I was like, wow, I mean, you know, Texas is like, this was in Texas, and you know, you do have a right to defend yourself. So I'm curious to see if he'll be exonerated. Well, I guess his story wasn't exactly accurate, Carmelo Anthony's, because he has now been indicted on first-degree murder. Austin Metcalf, 17 years old, bled out in his brother's arms after the then 17-year-old Anthony, who's now 18, attacked him in the bleachers of David Kuykendall Stadium in Frisco on April 2nd. And Anthony insisted he was acting in self-defense. He never explained, by the way, why he had a weapon at an event on school property. So this stems from Metcalf asking Anthony to leave his team tent since he did not go to that school. And there's allegedly now video of this incident which contradicts Anthony's story. So they have footage which they have not released. So nobody's really seen it except for this grand jury. The video recorded on a fixed camera at the stadium did not show any fighting, pushing, or physical altercation between the boys prior to the knifing. And the surveillance video appears to challenge a self-defense claim made by the murder suspect. It doesn't really give any visible evidence that Anthony was in immediate danger before the attack. And they keep dancing around this video because the Frisco Police Department said no comment when they were asked, is this the only video you have of the killing? And by the way, Anthony remains under house arrest after persuading a judge that his safety was at risk following threats he received while living in a gated community. So he's living somewhere else now. Oh, and he's also claiming he's indigent. He's broke. So he's getting a public defender. But again, this is after his family gets on GoFundMe and they raised a lot of money. And I remember reading the comments. I think I told you at the time. And it was a lot. There was a lot of black people commenting on it like, yeah, well, fucking white boy got what he deserved. Because the story was that this guy came up and, like, you know, grabbed the kid and he knifed him to death. So that clearly is not the case if he's been indicted with a fucking first-degree murder charge, but we'll see. More crime news. Where is this? Where is... They don't, my pet peeve, you guys, when they don't fucking put the state on the periodical's main site. Where is Colesville? And where is Broome County? I don't even know. I'll look for it later. Anyway, the headline is that a 3-week-old baby was shot with a crossbow during a fight. Now, this happened back in 2023. But 28-year-old Patrick Profreet was sentenced on June 27th after pleading guilty to second-degree murder. So what happened here? On June 26, 2023, the Broome County Sheriff's Office and Emergency Medical Services responded to a report that a woman and an infant had been shot with a crossbow at a home in the town of Colesville. So the cops show up. They find his wife and newborn daughter shot with a crossbow. The child was pronounced dead at the scene. The wife was released from the hospital later that day with non-life-threatening injuries. So I guess this guy was arguing with his wife when he pulls out this crossbow and fires it at her. And what it sounds like is she was holding the kid because, you know, it's a single-shot weapon, right? The crossbow struck the infant in the upper torso, exits the armpit, and then hits the mom in the chest. So he ran off. He was found quickly and taken into custody. I guess they were in some kind of argument. The baby was crying and stuff like that. And, yeah. He left the bedroom where they were sitting with the crying baby, loaded this crossbow, comes back in the room, and he fucking shot the kid right through the chest. Oh, then he tore the arrow out and threw towels at the wife, telling her to stop the bleeding. And then he ran out of there. Oh, fucking horrible. I guess the prosecutor said in no way, shape, or form was this guy remorseful. So they were like, "Screw it, you're getting the big sentence." Good. Okay. Let's do something fun again here as well. So let's talk about the Liver King. What is happening with Liver King? You guys all know Liver King, 48-year-old Brian Johnson. I'm sure you've all seen the videos by now. I'll play a few. He's in a meltdown, guys. That's all it is to it. Liver King, if you don't know, if you live on another planet, remember, like, I don't know, he peaked, like, what do you think, guys? Like a year ago? He really peaked. That was at the height of his fame. He's the ridiculously jacked dude who was eating like bull testicles and raw meat and shit like that, and he had the ancestral tenets insisting that you live off the land and you eat raw testicles and shit like that to get jacked. When he first came out, I said on the podcast, I was like, obviously the man is pumped to the gills with steroids. Obviously. You don't look like that without taking massive amounts of performance-enhancing drugs. It was always absurd. To me, it was like ridiculous. And sure enough, it came out that he was on steroids. And since it was like somehow people were shocked by that, and I guess he lost a lot of street cred. And he's honestly, I haven't heard from him like in a while. But he started sharing all these videos about how he wanted to go find Joe Rogan and fight him. So, yeah, if you've seen him lately, his face looks all cut up. He looks like he's crazy. His eyeballs, dude, I'm looking at a still picture from one of the videos right now, and one of his pupils is like fucking pinpoint pupil, and the other one looks normal. So he wanted to travel to Austin and fight Joe Rogan. Now, where did this come from? Well, God, was this way back in 2022? I guess it's more than a year since he peaked his fame. He was exposed as a steroid user, and Rogan really amplified that on his podcast. So I guess TMZ, though, said Rogan was surprised by this because he never really had actual contact with the Liver King. And he has not commented publicly on his recent behavior. So it's just in a couple days, like I said, he just went on this. He started posting up all these fucking stories about fighting Joe Rogan and talking to himself. And he just seems really unstable. Now, I think they arrested him because at first I was like, what are you going to... He challenged him to a fight, so what? But I think it was like he was documenting himself traveling to go find Rogan, like holding an axe and making some of these videos and shit like that. And I think the cops were finally like just enough of this. Okay, so I'm going to play a couple clips here. The first one that really kicked off the whole thing is a little hard to understand, but I'm just going to play a little bit. The other two are better. Because there's like music playing in the background and he's not using like a lapel microphone or anything. So, but this is when he's holding two ARs of some kind, two long guns. He's holding two long guns. He's bare chested, of course, and he's wearing like some sort of wolf hat on himself. So this is when he calls out Joe Rogan. Let's see if we can hear it here.
I'm calling you out. My name's Liver King. Man to man. I'm picking a fight with you. Yeah. I have zero training in jiu-jitsu. You're a black belt. You should dismantle me. But I'm picking a fight with you. Your rules. Whatever you want me to weigh, I'll weigh it. I weighed 190 this morning. I'll come to you whenever you're ready. Whenever you're ready to go. I want a vibration play, by the way.
Okay, so that's the one. Like I said, it's kind of hard to hear. So then he does this other one. You see, he's like going on all fours like some kind of gorilla. Here's another one. Let's listen to this one. He runs up to the camera.
Because Joe Rogan, we don't have to make videos to pretend anymore. All of this is happening. We're coming to you. I've challenged you man to man to a fight. Honorable. And we don't have to pretend or make any videos. The world is watching. They'll make the videos for us. And you don't have to hold a camera. You can hold the hand of somebody that you love, because what happens next to you, you're going to need to remember that feeling. You're going to need something more than what you did to give you something to fight for, because I have my family to fight for. And I'll die for.
Okay, so there's that one. It keeps going. Oh, there's more here.
And you're a black belt, but you've never come across something like this. Willing to die, hoping that you'll choke me out. I pray to God, because that's a dream come true. It feels good. And then the limbs, I'm fighting for my family. So limb. Go ahead. But then you have to contend with something else. And I weigh 177 pounds. An actual savage. And so at first you're like, fuck that guy. And right? When you all of a sudden he did get your attention, which I already did before this, you're saying, I'm going to choke that motherfucker, that piece of fucking shit, I'm going to choke him out. That's what warriors do. You and Andrew Tate are good warriors. But you're actually better than that real tension we have. Comedy that you do is good and true.
I have no idea what he's talking about. Obviously, Joe, if this was like if they say they actually fought, if it was like a real bout with rules, of course Joe Rogan is going to just destroy him. Because remember, Joe Rogan was also a Taekwondo champion. He is a black belt, and he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So like it would in a street fight, anything can happen. But then there was this one. Should I even bother playing this? I mean, it is kind of funny. This one he put out a long one. Where's the other one though? Yeah, I'll just play one more here, because he's just like, he looks like this is kind of after this. He's just like wandering around his house going crazy. Let's listen to this one here.
Good morning, primals. From the vibration plate at the greatest state in the world, Austin, Texas. Texas is the state, just to be clear.
Thank you.
Bags under my eyes. Haven't slept a whole lot. And it's been an amazing gift. When you fracture the physical, don't sleep, don't eat much, drink much. You go deeper into something else. You gotta maybe express something else. Something else. Ask me what the password is to Wi-Fi. I can't wait to share it. So, good morning, primals. What I'm doing, do it with me. Get the early morning sun through the eyes, on the face, on the skin. Get the bare feet connected, anchored, grounded into the earth. About to go do that with the pups right now. Down there, that's where the Dobermans go to play, down there at the water.
Okay, this fucking guy. He's just like babbling insanely. Anyway, he made bail and he's out on bail now. So, all right. Fucking Liver King, dude. Guy's such a kook. Let's see. I've got to talk, I guess, about the New York City mayoral primary. Yeah, straight communist has won the Democratic primary for mayor in New York City. And this is Zohran Mamdani. And he won. And he was considered not to have a chance. And this guy's like straight communist, like right out of the book. He wants free childcare. He wants a $30 minimum wage. He wants a massive tax hike on the city's corporations, et cetera, et cetera. And whether any of that can happen, I mean, probably not. A lot of it's like not even in a mayor's control, right? And he wants like all rent frozen, all shit like that. And he wants to put huge taxes on businesses, wealthy people. He infamously pledged to shift the property tax burden, quote, from the outer boroughs to more expensive homes in richer and whiter neighborhoods, end quote. And this has prompted a huge backlash in New York City. But we'll see. So the deal, because Eric Adams, the current mayor now, Eric Adams is running for re-election, but there's another guy running. You guys remember the Guardian Angels, the dudes who wore berets and shit and would patrol subways, and their founder, Curtis Sliwal, I think it's pronounced. He's also running for mayor. So the fear is that those two guys will split that vote, and that would mean Mamdani gets the majority of the vote and he becomes mayor. So whether or not he can actually do any of this shit is highly debatable. But it just shows you by the way, he's a straight democratic socialist. So what does that mean? Well, it's kind of hard to say. But basically, they oppose capitalism and they want to shift power from corporations to workers. So it's kind of Marxist, right? In the United States, some of the things they advocate for, huge minimum wages increases, universal health care, stuff like that. So you could kind of compare them to Bernie Sanders or my girl Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez. She is also a self-described democratic socialist. However, the Democratic Socialists of America, by the way, pulled their endorsement of Ocasio-Cortez last year because they accused her of being insufficiently supportive of the pro-Palestinian movement. The Democratic Socialists of America, the DSA, they claim on their website they have 90,000 members, which isn't very many, but their megaphone is very, very loud. So that's who is going to be, in all likelihood, the next mayor of New York City. I've got a few clips from him. Probably his most famous thing is he wants government-run grocery stores. Yes, 100% owned and operated by the government. Now, these will almost assuredly lose money. So he might as well just come out and say, I'll propose government food banks, because grocery stores run by the private sector have crazy thin margins as it is. There's no way a government grocery store with much lower prices than a regular store, because Mamdani thinks the cost of living is too high, are ever going to turn a profit. So they're always going to be in the red. But here's what he said about it. He made a video about it.
Grocery prices are out of control. The cost of eggs and milk has skyrocketed. Some stores are even using dynamic pricing, jacking up the cost over the course of a day depending on what they can get away with. It doesn't need to be this way. I'm Zahran Mamdani, and as mayor, I will create a network of city-owned grocery stores. It's like a public option for produce. We will redirect city funds from corporate supermarkets to city-owned grocery stores, whose mission is lower prices, not price gouging. These stores will operate without a profit motive or having to pay property taxes or rent.
Oh, nice.
Pass on those savings to you.
Okay, so you hear that? So he's going to tax other grocery stores who barely make any money at all, and then he's going to use that and tax money to create a chain of stores with, in his words, no profit motive. Here's another winner of a clip. He was talking about violence in the streets. Let's listen to this clip. He said,
oftentimes we've even found as legislators, when we go into these courts, the term violent crime is even used when people are stealing packages. Violent crime is even used when people are accused of burglary and there happens to be a housing unit in that same dwelling. So violence is an artificial construction. We have to be very clear what is happening here with these district attorneys. That is violence.
Oh God, he's straight. Yeah, he doesn't want to put anybody in jail. Let me translate for that for you. He does not want to put anybody in jail. I mean, guys, we've seen this act before. They tried all this shit in San Francisco, and it was a fucking complete disaster. So much so that even the voters of San Francisco recalled their district attorney. Remember that guy? What was his name? He's the son of Bill Ayers. He had that weird first name, Chesia Bowden, I think his name is. Steel Trap Mine's a little rusty today. And the San Francisco people recalled him. They also recalled the Oakland mayor, and they also recalled the Oakland district attorney because of all the violent crime that was happening, because these people got elected saying that same bullshit. Oh, no. There's circumstances you can't possibly understand. Nobody belongs in jail, and crime skyrockets. And the exact same fucking thing is going to happen here because his policies are exactly the same. I mean, it's not rocket science. Now, he's also talking shit about immigrations and customs enforcement, of course. So Mamdani clearly wants no cooperation with ICE. He doesn't want New York PD working with ICE. He doesn't want any illegal aliens ever arrested or detained or inconvenienced in any way. So border czar Tom Homan was asked about this on Fox Business. Let's hear this response.
Tom Homan, this new socialist mayor candidate. He hasn't won yet, but he won the Democratic primary, Zorain Mamdani. So he's saying, I mean, this is incredible. He's vowed to kick the, quote, fascist ICE out of New York City, okay? So how do you intend to deal with that? Because I would guess there are going to be a lot of criminals and Iranian cells and whatnot in New York City. The job's not done there. What do you say to this guy?
Good luck with that. Federal law trumps him every day, every hour of every minute. We're going to be in New York City. Matter of fact, because it's a sanctuary city, President Trump made it clear a week and a half ago. We're going to double down and triple down on sanctuary cities. If we can't arrest a bad guy in a county jail, one agent arresting one bad guy, they release him in the streets like New York does every day. We got to send a whole team to look at this guy. And not only that, we're going to send additional teams to look for all the people they arrest. We're going to concentrate in sanctuary cities because we know they're releasing public safety threats and national security threats back to the street. So we know we got a problem there. So we don't have that problem in Florida with most sheriffs work for us. So we're going to just double up and triple up on New York. And not only are we going to send more agents to the neighborhood, we're going to increase worksite enforcement tenfold. If we can't arrest them in the jail, you're going to force them in the neighborhood, then we'll find them in the neighborhood. If we can't find them in the neighborhood, we'll find them at the worksite. So game on. We're coming.
All right. And Tom Homan has been very, very clear about from day one, which is like all the screaming about how, oh, they're targeting blue cities. That's illegal. And I'm like, dude, if you want to catch a fish, you go to where the fish are. Like he said, why would he waste time with tons of field agents in Florida where they still do workplace enforcement and raids, but generally sheriffs and police chiefs in Florida cooperate with ICE and they hand over their criminals so they don't have to use as many resources. This is not fucking, again, this is not like anything breaking or anything, but Tom Homan has always said the same shit over and over again about how he's going to go in there. So that's the way it is. So Mamdani can scream about it all he wants, but that is the way it is. Okay. And let's do this one. In-N-Out Burger is in the news. Much beloved California franchise, California-born franchise. Well, they are in the news now because they are suing a YouTuber who posed as an In-N-Out employee and made, quote, bizarre and lewd comments, end quote. Yes, they filed a lawsuit against Brian Arnett. So he dressed up, Arnett dressed up as an In-N-Out worker, right? And he was taking orders from unsuspecting customers and making like lewd comments wearing the In-N-Out brand. So I don't have the video. It's been restricted to private viewing. I tried to find it. I couldn't find it. And he's seen interacting with customers and making comments that In-N-Out says damages the chain's reputation. I guess this was on Easter Sunday. Let's see. The lawsuit states that he made lewd, derogatory, and profane remarks, quote, such as stating that In-N-Out had cockroaches and condoms in its food, and that In-N-Out associates put their feet in lettuce served to customers, end quote. The lawsuit also accuses Annette of asking customers if they want their food made, quote, doggy style, end quote. If you don't know In-N-Out, you can order your burger animal style. He told one customer that they are, quote, only serving gay people, end quote, which led to the customer driving away. And asked another if they would like to try the, quote, monkey burger, end quote, which comes with a damn near black bun. Oh, he also asked a customer if they would like to sleep with his wife and allow him to watch. He said in the video, quote, I like sleeping with my wife sleeping with other men. I'm sorry. I like watching my wife sleeping with other men. Is that something you'd be interested in? End quote in the video. And he posted videos to his YouTube page. In-N-Out warned him, said, hey, you're wearing our trademark and you're posting without the consent of the customers who were filmed, so you better take it off. So that's when he switched his account to private. Wait, let me see if San Francisco Gate, there's a link here. Do they have the video? Let's see here. I don't think they have no, they don't have the video either. Yeah. So they're suing him. We'll see. Wingsuit death. A wingsuit champion, 24 years old, has died. Yes, while he was wingsuiting. Liam Byrne. He starred in a documentary about his journey to become a champion skydiver. And he fell to his death on the Gitschen Mountain in the Swiss Alps. last Saturday. He is from Scotland. He had completed more than 4,000 jumps in his 10 years as a wingsuit flyer, and he was featured in a recent BBC documentary called The Boy Who Can Fly. He was jumping with two others on Saturday when he died. A police spokesman said that he deviated from his intended course shortly after takeoff for reasons still unknown, and he crashed into a rocky outcrop at approximately 6,900 feet above sea level. He suffered fatal injuries. Yeah, dude, that's not a career known for its longevity. So it's now being investigated by the Office of the Attorney General of Switzerland. It's really all we know. Guess this kid was getting after it at a young age, man. He was only 12 years old when he climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. He started skydiving at 16 and began using a wingsuit at 18, and now 6 years later, he is died. Not great. What else? Let's go back to Arizona. A couple of you guys sent me this one. There was some kind of crazy murder plot by 5th grade girls, and there's been arrests made. Yeah, a group of 5th graders plotted to murder their male classmate after he allegedly cheated on and broke up with one of them. This was 4 female students at a K-8 charter school in Surprise, Arizona. They planned to stab the boy in the stomach and leave a fake suicide note. These kids are only 10 to 11 years old. And were they serious about this, or is this just bullshitting? They plotted this during recess at Legacy Traditional School's West Surprise campus on October 1st, 2024. Each girl had been assigned a role. One would bring the knife. Another would write the suicide note to make it appear that the boy ended his own life. The third girl would stand as the lookout, while the fourth would stab him to death. They planned to lure him to an outside bathroom on the north side of the school building. They even planned to wear gloves to avoid leaving fingerprints on the murder weapon. And the plan was foiled when another student overheard the plan and heard one of the girls say they just wanted to, quote, just end him, end quote. That student told their parent, that parent contacted the assistant principal. And the next morning, the girls came to the school's office with their parents. The bags were searched and they were individually questioned. All 4 children were arrested on charges of threatening and disorderly conduct. They were only charged as juveniles. These are considered misdemeanor crimes. Well, 3 of the girls showed remorse and probably were freaked out, but a 4th girl kept smiling and laughing while making excuses for this. So, what is going on? Cheated on. How did a guy cheat on her? Would he hold another girl's hand? Fucking 10 and 11 years old. Crazy. Another bizarre killing. This happened, actually, I think this was happening the morning of last Saturday when I was doing the podcast. This foiled church shooting. The guy who was run over by a church deacon and then shot by church security guards. Yeah. Very weird guy. They uncovered some of his social media posts. 31-year-old Brian Anthony Browning was shot dead by security guards at the Cross Point Church in Wayne, which is a suburb of Detroit, on Sunday morning. Yeah, it was, because I did the podcast last Sunday. That's right. So they uncovered and started sharing his social media posts, including Facebook. One of the things he wrote, he was talked specifically about the Cross Point Church. He wrote, quote, "You have not only lied to men, but have lied unto the Spirit of the Lord. His blood is on your hands, Cross Point Community Church," end quote. Yeah, this guy was once, and this kid was tagged to go to West Point at one time. He was an ROTC commander years before he was shot by those security guards. He was a father of 2. He spent time in jail for drug and domestic violence crimes in 2015 and 2018. Yeah, this is fucking bizarre. They have pictures. If you guys want, the Daily Mail has an exclusive of this guy Browning all over the place in his like ROTC uniform and shit like that. Wow. Sounds like a total kook. He got a West Point nomination letter in December 26, 2011, and he had pictures again in his dress uniform alongside his older sister, Breanne Rice, who was in her active duty military uniform. She was in the Army National Guard. And I guess after graduating high school, though, his life kind of went downhill. He never went to West Point. He left. No military thing ever happened. A third classmate did say he joined the military after high school, but there seems to be some confusion about whether or not he actually did that. So remember, he rammed his Ford F-150 truck into the building before he opened fire during the service, the church service. And the Wayne Police Department says this is more of like a mental breakdown rather than organized terrorism. So they did have a church security team, and they fucking smoked this kid dead. He was armed with an AR-15, a style assault rifle, and more than a dozen mags of ammo, and a semi-automatic handgun with an extended mag and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. They found rifles, semi-automatic handguns, and a large amount of ammo when they searched his home. He had no prior criminal history or prior contact with the police whatsoever. Very, very weird. Just a total fucking break with reality. Okay. Let's... I want to play this clip. You guys are familiar with the Cobra Kai TV show, right? Yeah, I never watched it. I know it's like a follow-up of The Karate Kid. And I remember the Karate Kid guy. Remember the evil dojo actor who played Kreese? I don't even know what his real name. Oh, Martin Cove is the real guy's name. Remember the evil dojo instructor? Fear has no pain in this dojo. There's no place in this dojo. Pain has no place in this dojo. Whatever this guy was saying. Anyway, he's being accused of biting his Cobra Kai co-star. And I'm not sure what her name is, but she confronted him, and there's a clip of it. So I thought I'd just play this clip. Let's see where we can get out of this.
Bite people. That is not okay.
That is assault.
And it's 100% up to her if she wants to pursue charges. I'd like to understand why you did that.
I apologize. I was just playing because we're very playful together, and I bit down too hard, and I meant to.
She's got a mouth mark on her.
I know.
No, we do not play like that. I
apologize.
No, I am really pissed.
That's the
You
co-star.
have left a mark on my body, which in your 80-year-old brain, you think is play. Sir, were you raised in a ditch? Is that how people treated you when you were a child? You yelled at me. The audacity. How dare you, sir? How dare you?
You definitely should not have done that when you are in the wrong.
I'm very sorry that I got angry because I was indulging in something improper by doing that, and I'm very sincerely sorry.
Photography evidence of it. Yeah.
Rick, is this not insane to you?
Yes.
Okay, so that was a police body cam. I don't know if they ended up arresting him or not. She showed her arm close up to the body cam, and I really couldn't see anything. But he's not denying he did it. So, okay, let's do a few more international stories. Thailand. Remember, I always talked about them legalizing weed. Well, they have reversed themselves. They are moving to recriminalize cannabis now, out of the blue. So, what went wrong? Because now they have a weed industry over there that's estimated to be worth over $1 billion since cannabis was taken off the country's narcotics list in 2022. So the push to impose new controls on recreational use of cannabis comes after the Boom Jai Thai party, which championed its legalization, withdrew from the ruling coalition last week following Thai Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatра's apparent mishandling of a border dispute with Cambodia. Sorry, guys, I'm a little distracted because it's fucking Saturday here, And this is when the landscapers show up at my apartment complex, and there's literally like a weed eater fucking right outside my window, which is closed, but you can still hear it. It's incredibly annoying. I'm like, fucking really, dude? It has to be Saturday morning is when you send the lawn guys over to I mean, no slam on them. I'm just saying, couldn't you do this Monday through Friday? Christ. Anyway, so late on Tuesday, Thailand's health ministry issues an order prohibiting the sale of cannabis for recreational use and making it mandatory for any retail purchase to require a doctor's prescription. And these rules are going to come into effect in a matter of days. And they said it's going to be classified as a narcotic. Yeah, in 2022, Thailand became one of the first countries in Asia to decriminalize recreational use of cannabis, but they really didn't have any rules to govern the sector. And since then, tens of thousands of shops and businesses selling weed have sprung up across Thailand, including in the country's tourism hubs. And the government spokesman said they're pretty unhappy about the side effects. Social problems, particularly for children and young people. Let's see here. Yeah, and people are saying, well, how are you even going to reverse this? Because there's shops everywhere in Thailand now. So sounds like it's just going back to the underground. Very strange. And Mexico City, let's go over to there. 11 people have been killed in a mass shooting at a religious festival. God. Killed 11 and injured at least 20 in an attack in central Mexico City, Irapuato, in the Guanajuato state. And this is during celebrations marking the Nativity of John the Baptist. A 17-year-old was among those killed, along with 8 adult men and 2 women. President Claudia Sheinbaum, of course, weighed in. She condemned the shooting as deplorable, adding that authorities had launched an investigation. She described the incident as a confrontation without giving details about the circumstances of the victims. Yeah, if you didn't know, Guanajuato is Mexico's deadliest state due to cartel gang turf wars. And I often use this stat several times about nationwide violence in Mexico. It's fucking insane. Criminal violence since 2006 has claimed around 480,000 lives and left more than 120,000 people missing. You know how many murders just the state of Guanajuato recorded last year? More than 3,000. Yeah, last month, investigators in Guanajuato said they found 17 bodies in an abandoned house. Just days before that, gunmen opened fire and killed 7 people, including children. In February, 5 women and 3 men were shot dead in the street in Guanajuato. The month before that, security forces clashed with cartel gunmen, leaving 10 suspected criminals dead, 3 police officers injured. It just goes on and on and on. Mexico is a failed state, as I've told you many times. Gun carelessness story. 19-year-old Georgia man shot and killed in his sleep by a 3-year-old toddler who got a hold of his gun. Whoops. Man. 19-year-old Cabral Patterson was found with a gunshot in the back of his head. He was pronounced dead on the scene. Let me see here. I guess he was visiting family. And there was other people in the house. Patterson and the child who shot him were not related. Patterson had brought the gun with him. And the authorities said, yeah, the toddler likely was crawling around, got a hold of this gun, and put it fucking right in the back of his head and pulled the trigger. Jesus. Yeah, if you have a kid rolling around the house, dude, just, I know you guys are also, I'm a big Second Amendment guy. I know all of you are too. Okay, I get it. If there's kids around, I'm locking my gun up. You don't need to have the gun all the time. You're in a house, for God's sakes. What do you think's going to happen? You have to have it in your waistband, for Christ's sakes? Crazy to me. Okay, let's do some immigration stuff and talk about immigration arrests specifically. If you first of all, they're up sharply in every single state. Yep, they are more than doubled in 38 states in the month since Trump took office. Most of the arrests have occurred in states with large immigrant populations, including Florida and Texas. ICE has arrested more than 20,000 people in Texas since January 20th, even as border crossings have slowed significantly. I wonder if there's correlation between those two things or not. The agency's Miami field office, for the agency being ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, has also arrested more than 11,000 people. Wow. Yep. If you guys want to go look, there's many charts. This New York Times article, they break it down by state, they break it down by percentage, everything. Again, the headline is immigrations or arrests are up sharply in every state. Here are the numbers. If you guys want to go look and click on your state to see what it is. But there's some decent statistics here. Again, the pace of arrests has increased in every state compared to 2024. And I just want to get to some numbers here. Contrary to popular belief, again, ICE is operating in every state. Since the beginning of Trump's term, ICE has more than doubled their daily immigration arrest rate, averaging 666 immigration arrests per day, compared with fewer than 300 per day in 2024. You know Stephen Miller, right? He's Trump's deputy chief of staff, and he is relentless in his pursuit of the illegal immigrants, right? Well, I gave you that 666 immigration arrests per day. You know what Miller set a target of? 3,000 arrests per day. So to get that and to make Miller happy and therefore Trump happy, ICE is doing all these aggressive tactics, detaining immigrants at check-ins, immigration court hearings, raiding the job sites, everything else like that. As far as expedited removal, at the end of 2024, about 5% of arrestees were processed through expedited removal, which means just get out. That went up to 15% in June, after the Trump administration stripped all those legal protections from many of the recently arrived migrants. In 21 states and the District of Columbia, the pace of arrests has more than tripled. Wow. And Idaho, for all you guys saying, oh, he's only in the blue states, get this. ICE in Idaho made 77 arrests last year, right? Since January 20th, ICE has now made more than 300 arrests in Idaho alone. Remember, 77 last year, more than 300 in what, 5-6 months? Okay, well, again, this is all to send a message. And the offer is on the table. Remember, when you start feeling sorry for them, which I know a lot of you guys do because you're softies, and the media will ignore the 100,000 fucking convicted criminals that ICE arrests and focus on the one that has kind of a sob story, and they'll blare that day and night. They ignore everything else. So I understand it. But this is when you have to be stern and you have to send a message. We're not fucking around anymore. The party is over. We're actually doing it. And that's what you got to do. And the word is getting out, which is why border crossings have dropped to a low which we've perhaps never seen before in American history. So then I'll get to the specific Supreme Court ruling later, but the Supreme Court basically said, yes, it's okay to deport people to countries that they're not from. And that included like a lot of deal making. Like U.S. officials approached Angola, Mongolia, Ukraine to try to get them to take our illegal immigrants. Because a problem we're having is because a lot of these countries refuse to take them back, right? So we're forced to look for other countries to take them. Like Kosovo agreed to take up to 50 people. Costa Rica is holding a few dozen. The U.S. government paid Rwanda $100,000 to take a single Iraqi. Yeah, and you guys all know about Sudan doing that. But the Supreme Court ruled on Monday that the Trump administration has the right to expel people to countries other than their own, possibly, again, paving the way for deportation flights to some of these countries. countries. Because we've been stymied for many decades by these countries who are like, no, why would we want to take back our criminals? No, we're not taking them back. And all the U.S. presidents have been like, okay, if you say so. Well, now we're using the big stick. The Trump administration has spoken to at least 29 nations, and we are going to approach another 29. 7 countries have agreed to our request. Other conversations are ongoing. All right. Well, again, can all be avoided. The administration says, hey, we'll give you $1,000 and a free plane ticket back to your country. And that way you can reapply and come back in. But if we catch you and deport you, you're never coming back. Okay? Other immigration news, Trump officials are going to end deportation protections for those Haitian immigrants now. Yeah, they declared that Haiti is now safe enough for the program to end by September. Yeah, that would be a shitload. More than 300,000 Haitians have been protected under that program, the infamous program called Temporary Protected Status. And the Department of Homeland Security said that program would expire on September 2nd. Of course, they're suing. The Obama administration first granted temporary protective status to Haitians in the United States in 2010 after that big earthquake, and it has been repeatedly extended in the years since. The first Trump administration tried to end that in 2019, but that was blocked by legal challenges. So Republicans have argued the protections for migrants from unstable places have strayed way far from their original mission of providing temporary shelter for conflict or disaster. Right, exactly, because that was the original intent. Oh, there's a huge earthquake, right? Thousands of people dead, no running water. Fine, you can stay because you're already here, right? And you can overstay your visa. That was the intent of the program, not just, oh, your country's bad, so hundreds of thousands of you can come here and then claim the same status. It was never meant to that. It's idiotic. Now, of course, Haiti is far from safe. But again, this is when you got to be like, dude, why don't you 300,000 Haitians go back and fight the gangs? Why don't we do that? As a matter of fact, on the deportation plane, why don't we just give them a shitload of AKs and RPGs and be like, guys, here you go. Take back your country. 300,000 of you against a few gangs? Come on. But of course, all the illegal immigration attorneys, who are the worst of all attorneys, by the way, are wetting their diapers about it. Then that brings us to birthright citizenship. Very interesting here. This Supreme Court ruling was not exactly about birthright citizenship. It had to do with nationwide injunctions. I'll talk about that in a minute. Friday, the Supreme Court largely sided with the Trump administration because Trump issued an executive order, remember, on his first day in office, intended to end birthright citizenship. That is a principle that grants U.S. citizenship to all children born on U.S. soil, right? It doesn't matter what your parents are doing, doesn't matter if 2 of them just got off a plane from Russia and they popped out a baby on the tarmac, that kid's a U.S. citizen. Doesn't matter if the parents are citizens, nothing. So, although the Supreme Court did not rule on the constitutionality of the executive order on birthright citizenship, it rejected the nationwide injunction that had blocked that order, which clears the way for that order to be applied, at least temporarily, in a majority of states. So, what's going to happen right now? There's a lot of unanswered questions. First of all, is it going to take immediate effect? No. Immigrants' rights groups, in 22 states, all with Democratic governors, had sued over the birthright citizenship order, and 3 federal district courts vacated the policy. I mean, it's the usual suspects: California, Maryland, New York, Washington, et cetera, et cetera. In the 28 states that didn't challenge the order can go into effect, but the Supreme Court did impose a 30-day delay before anything can go into effect. So that leaves time for ongoing lawsuits and everything else like that. So basically what the Supreme Court rejected was the ability of a single federal judge to block enforcement of a presidential order across the country, which is something I've long complained about. I've always said, like, well, listen, if you're a federal court judge and you think an order is constitutional, fine. Put an injunction on it that applies to your district. Because often, as we've pointed out many, many times on this podcast, federal judges will disagree with each other. And a guy in the Ninth Circuit might be like, that's unconstitutional. I'm slapping an injunction on it. Or, and a guy in the fucking Seventh Circuit might be like, no, that's fine. It can go ahead. And then it has to go to the Supreme Court. So why does an unelected judge get to impose his will on the entire nation when Trump, who was elected by the people of the United States, unlike these judges, why can't he institute what he was elected for? And I would support this, frankly, no matter who the president is. I said this during Joe Biden's term, too. I think it's absurd. And yeah, and of course, you get what you wish for, right? This could happen, and some Democratic president can come on and say, like, well, I'm I'm canceling the border, right? And a federal judge would not be allowed to block that nationwide. But I think it's good because this is the judge has way overstepped their boundaries here. So are we going to have like stateless babies now born in the United States? Well, it depends. I mean, the babies should be able to acquire the foreign citizenship of their parents. But not all countries recognize what they call derivative citizenship through a parent, right? So some foreign countries are like, well, no, that baby wasn't born here. That's not our citizen. But some do, including Mexico, Brazil, Poland, et cetera, et cetera. So would babies born to undocumented parents be deportable? Who knows? Now, on this order, children of people on visas to study and work in the U.S. would also be ineligible for automatic citizenship. In other words, if the baby is born to a parent on a temporary visa, no, you don't get U.S. citizenship. You might get temporary legal visa like your parents, but you wouldn't get automatic U.S. citizenship. So right now, it's basically kind of hard to say what's going on. So it's a very quirky case anyway. Because remember, the original question of this was they wanted to give citizenship to children born in the U.S. from the freed slaves. That was the entire idea behind birthright citizenship. I mean, I don't think they ever envisioned that, we were going to have fucking millions of illegal aliens from China, India, God knows where, and the second they break in on purpose, after we told them not to come, they get citizenship for their child. I don't think the founders ever intended that. As a matter of fact, I have a few clips on here, but I wanted to read this one first. There was a Senate debate on ratifying this. I know I'm getting a little in the weeds here, guys. Stick with me. They debated this on May 30th, 1866, right after the Civil War ended. Again, they wanted to do something for the children of these freed slaves. So one senator, Willard Salisbury from Delaware, he was noting ratifying this, the provision, right? And he noted how it's specified to free black people, right? So Salisbury said, according to the Senate transcript, quote, "I do not presume that anyone will pretend to disguise the fact that the object of this first section is simply to declare that Negroes shall be citizens of the United States. There can be no other object in it, I presume, than a further extension of the legislative kindness and beneficence of Congress towards that class of people," end quote. Okay? So he's saying this is for the freed slaves. Then the author of the amendment, Senator Jacob Howard, I don't remember where he was from, he said the following, quote, every person born within the limits of the United States and subject to their jurisdiction is by virtue of natural law and national law a citizen of the United States. This will not, of course, include persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, who belong to the families of ambassadors or foreign ministries accredited to the government of the United States, but will include every other class of person, end quote. So there you go. And it goes on and on and on. You guys can go look into this on your own time. So, I mean, they even debated whether Native Americans should be American citizens, because they're like, hey, the Indians owe their allegiance to a tribe, right? Not the United States, who they're actively fighting at the time. So that same Senator Howard said, quote, Indians born within the Indians, Native Americans, he means. Indians born within the limits of the United States and who maintain their tribal relations are not, in the sense of this amendment, born subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. They are regarded and have always have been in our legislation and jurisprudence as being quasi-foreign nations, end quote. Then they went on to say, well, but if you're Native American and you want to be a U.S., you can. But just, it wasn't like an automatic thing. And it's a fascinating debate, and it was far from clear that they intended for everybody here to just automatically be a U.S. citizen. So I've got a clip of this from Trump. Yeah, here's a clip from Trump talking about this exact topic. Let's listen to what he says here.
Thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis. And some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country on a vacation. This was, in fact, it was the same date, the exact same date, the end of the Civil War. It was meant for the babies of slaves, and it's so clean and so obvious. But this lets us go there and finally win that case, because hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves. So thanks to this decision.
Okay, I'll stop them there. Yeah, and I've covered in the past. Remember all those stories I did in L.A. about them busting like whole houses of Chinese women who would fly over here, drop a baby in the house, and then take the kid back to China, but the kid now has a U.S. passport too? Stuff like that. That's happened many, many, many times. I know everybody focuses on the poor Latinos, but ask those same liberals, well, should Russian oligarchs be able to allow here to vacation in Miami, have a kid while they're here, and that kid have a U.S. passport? I bet a lot of them would fucking change their minds on that. This is just funny as far as immigration. Trump was also talking in that same speech, and a cameraman decided to scream out during it. Let's listen to this.
So much, President Trump. Illegal crossings in the border are zero now.
Zero. Does everyone hear that?
Trump 2028. Do you intend, President Trump?
Who's that guy? I like him. He's working the cameras.
Okay, so that guy sounded like he was Indian, like East Indian. Trump 2028. And then a few other just small immigration stories quickly. We are creating 2 new expanded military zones along the border with Mexico. Strips of land in Texas and Arizona, right? Because that makes it, if you cross onto that, you're trespassing onto federal property. Yeah. They are going to be called national defense areas. And there are 4 now such newly designated military installation. Migrants who enter the areas will be considered trespassers and can be temporarily detained by U.S. troops until Border Patrol agents arrived. How about that one? And then Florida is building the so-called Alligator Alcatraz Detention Center. Now, this is already kind of built. It was an old airport, the Dade Collier Training and Transition Airport. It is in the Florida Everglades, right? They wanted to expand it at one point, but then the environmental activists weighed in. They stopped the expansion, but the airstrip is still there. I'm looking at a picture of it right now, right? And they just basically want to put tents on it. Now, they said this is going to cost Florida maybe $450 million a year to run, but Florida can get reimbursement from the Federal Election Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. And they think, yeah, we won't even have to have that much security. The area is surrounded by dangerous wildlife like alligators and pythons, hence alligator Alcatraz. Yeah, they want this facility to have 5,000 beds. Now, how quickly can this be built? Who knows? And by the time it is built, if it even does get built, you guys, we probably won't even need it. That's what I'm saying. That's the part that none of these doofuses on TV mention. This is all part of deterrence. Talking about alligator Alcatraz, right? Militarizing the border. The word gets back to the countries. And then they stop doing it to begin with, which is the whole idea. So this is like a psychological warfare here. It's a propaganda war, you guys. We're all in it. And finally, an administration is fighting it to our benefit, saying, no, it's going to be very hard to get here. And we're going to make your life miserable if you sneak in here despite us telling you not to. And that's just the way it is. And we're not different from any other country in doing that, which is why I have to harp on over and over and over again. Because everybody acts like this is like Nazi Germany. And I'm like, dude, I don't do this when I go to other countries. You know, I recalled the time when I was contracting in Iraq, right? And we get to DC to fly to Iraq the next day. And the officials say, hey, guys, everybody's got to go take $200 in cash out of your bank accounts. We'll reimburse you. And we're all like, what the fuck? And they're like, yeah, the Iraqis decided that now they're going to take $200 from each one of you coming into work in the country. Just cash, too. Who fucking knows where that money went, right? But sure as shit, showed up at the airport, show my passport. They're like, give me $200. Give it to them. They stamp my passport. We did what they said. You know why? Because it's their fucking country and we're guests and they have the last laugh. And that's just the way it was. That's it. And yes, many of you sent me the story about the customs dog who got kicked by that Egyptian fuck in the airport. Yeah. You believe this fucking guy, dude? This guy was on a tourist visa. He was arrested and kept from entering the U.S. this week because he kicked a trained detector dog at Dulles International Airport in D.C. Oh, and by the way, that found more than 100 pounds of undeclared food in his luggage. 100 pounds of undeclared food, you fat fuck. The man was named Hamed Ramadan Bayami Ali Marie, native of Egypt. Arrested, pleaded guilty a day later to a misdemeanor charge of harming animals used in law enforcement. He's 70 years old, and he was accused of kicking the agriculture detector dog, a 5-year-old beagle named Freddie, so hard that he was lifted off the ground. And yes, there is video and still shot video evidence of this. He reacted after the dog alerted its handler to contraband in his luggage. And he was carrying 55 pounds of beef, 44 pounds of rice, 15 pounds of eggplant, cucumbers, and bell peppers, 2 pounds of corn seeds, and a pound of herbs. What the fuck? Jeez. Freddie was taken to the emergency room. Fucking jerk. He was ordered to pay $840 in restitution, and then, yes, he was deported. Good. And then finally, do you remember the 53 migrants who died in the tractor trailer in Texas? Yeah. That was back in June 27th, 2022 in San Antonio. And they found that tractor trailer filled with migrants, almost all of whom were dead. It was abandoned when the temperature reached more than 100 degrees. It didn't have any AC. And the driver of the tractor trailer knew that the air conditioning was not working. So the update on that is that 2 men have been sentenced for that case. 6 of the deaths were for children, by the way. One guy, Armando Gonzalez Ortega, 55 years old, he got 83 years in prison. And Felipe Orduña Torres, 30 years old, got life in prison. So end to that sad tale. And then they're carrying out operations in LA, guys. And I don't know if you saw this video, but the vice mayor of Cudahy, a city in southeast LA County, is being investigated by the FBI because she decided to go on social media and tell the gang members to start defending their territory against ICE. I shit you not, this is a real person. Let's play it.
Not for nothing, but I want to know where all the cholos are at in Los Angeles. 18th Street, Florencia. Where's the leadership at? Because you guys are all about territory, and this is 18th Street, and this is Florencia. You guys tag everything up, claiming hood. And now that your hood's being invaded by the biggest gang there ain't a peep out of you. It's everyone else who's not about the gang life that's out there protesting and speaking up. We're out there like fighting our turf, protecting our turf, protecting our people. And like, where you at?
Where you at?
Bien calladitos, todos los chulitos. I'm like, dude, they're running amok all up on your streets and in your city. And peep, when the big gang guns come in, nothing but like quiet, and we're out here, the regular ones that have never been jumped in, out here calling things out, trying to organize people, trying to do the thing. So don't be trying to claim no block, no nothing. If you're not showing up right now, trying to like help out and organize, I don't want to hear a peep out of you once they're gone, trying to claim that this is my block. This was not your block. You weren't even here helping out. So whoever's the leadership over there, just fucking get your members in order.
Just get your members in order, Holmes. Can you believe this chick, dude? I'm surprised she didn't bust out the Vato whistle. Yeah, but you know why they didn't get involved? Because they are committing crimes and they don't want to be arrested. They don't care about La Raza or whatever you think. You think they're going to pick a fight with the federal government? Fucking idiot. And is that it for ICE? I had to do the fake hate crime one. So I guess some chick in Vermont said she was accosted by ICE. This article was honestly at vermontbiz.com is almost indecipherable. I don't know who this author is. It's terrible. It's hard to even make out what they were saying. But it was the director of the Boys and Girls Club in a Vermont town called Vergennes, Vergennes. And she, police say falsely, claimed under oath that she was accosted by an Immigrations and Customs Enforcement agent at a local business. She said this under oath and testified, but she's not going to be prosecuted on a felony charge. Her name is Alicia Grandgent, 49 years old. Instead of being prosecuted, they're making her give a $500 donation or some bullshit like that. Yeah, she even picked out a suspect. Let me see here. Yeah, she claimed that while picking up some butter at a supermarket, a customer walked from the milk section and was singing the chorus to Born in the USA. The singing man made some comment about ICE and made it clear it was not the weather condition, but federal agency being present, police said she reported. And then she claimed the man asked for her papers. She said, no, I know my rights, and asked for her ID again. And then Grandgent reported to police. Well, the problem was that there was a surveillance video at this grocery store, and they looked into it, and no such controversy ever occurred at all. So she made it all up. He was singing. So she said an ICE officer was just walking up to her going, Born in the USA. That's the chorus, right? Fucking hilarious. Yep, all bullshit. Okay, and then ICE continues to arrest all kinds of criminals. Okay, I'll just keep going there. How much time do I have left? Okay, I'm running out of time quick. Let's go. Homeless woman found dead in one of those donation drop boxes in Miami. Plantation, Florida, specifically. An unhoused woman has died after she reportedly got stuck while trying to retrieve articles of clothing from a donation drop box. Yeah, she's got stuck crawling into it, and she was pronounced dead. They describe her as a middle-aged homeless woman trying to crawl in there. She ultimately died of suffocation. 1,000-year-old sword decorated with spiritual symbols has been found in a Dutch river, a medieval sword. It's gone on display now in the Netherlands. It was found during routine maintenance during a dredging operation on a river in the central part of the country, and dates from around 1050 to 1150. Measures 3.3 feet in length. The sword is inlaid with gold-colored copper, forming the shape of a cross, and a spiritual symbol known as the Endless Knot. Very cool, and it's looks like a medieval sword. It's pretty well preserved. Only the wooden grip and leather wrappings have succumbed to the elements. But it was an iron sword, and it's barely corroded because the wet soil didn't have very much oxygen in it. So pretty cool. I love the archaeology, as you guys know, here on World News BK. Let me see. Where's that other influencer story I wanted to get to? Let me get to the. Oh yeah, here it is. This is crazy. Back here in California, also in Fontana, California. A woman in the process of getting a divorce and her date were shot and killed outside a sushi restaurant in Fontana. An off-duty sheriff's deputy heard the gunfire. They respond, and then they killed the suspected killer. And yes, it was the woman's estranged husband who tracked her down. Fucking horrible. The victim was social media influencer and fitness coach Gloria Zamora. She had talked about her divorce before, to her pending divorce, to her followers and stuff. And so on Saturday night, 40-year-old Zamora, alongside this new guy, this poor fuck, 43-year-old Hector Garduno, were shot and killed outside this Fontana sushi restaurant. The estranged husband, Thomas Alberto Tamayo Lizarraga, shot them both to death. And again, there was a couple off-duty guys in the area driving, like right across the street. They did a U-turn, confronted the suspect, and Lizarraga was shot and killed during the confrontation. Zamora was a mother of 7, and Garduno had 4 kids of his own, 4 girls. Horrible. They're not naming the deputy who shot him to death, but great job by the deputy for sure. Travis Decker update. Of course, the former Army Ranger who murdered his 3 daughters. I'm not letting that one go, of course. They're still looking for him. And they've been collecting all kinds of DNA, right? In this search area in the Washington Mountains. Not a single piece of DNA has been a match to Decker. Remember, he's 33 years old. He's accused of suffocating his 3 daughters, Peyton, Evelyn, and Olivia, 9, 8, and 5 years old, respectively, at that campsite. That was on May 30th in the Cascade Mountains in Washington State, and then he disappeared. They're still looking for him, and they have found 0 evidence. Fucking crazy. They still don't know if he's alive or dead. If he is alive, he had to have had help, or he planned this a long, long time ago and planted caches of food and all kinds of other stuff. I mean, at this point, I like I said last week, I think he probably just crawled into a nook maybe and offed himself, which would explain why he's eluded like all the infrared cameras and everything else. But they said they're not going to stop until they find him living or dead, which is appropriate in this case especially. Okay, let's keep going here. Oh, some of you guys sent me this one too. North Korea is opening up a new vacation resort. This is cool. I would totally go to this, by the way. Yeah, North Korea has completed construction on a massive tourist resorts, which has water slides, swimming pools, hotels. They put out some video on it. And it's a holiday destination project that Kim Jong-un really wanted to happen. It has taken almost 6 years longer to complete than scheduled because the country was hit hard by COVID. But Kim made an appearance there watching. I'm looking at a picture of him right now. And Kim is watching kids come down the water slide. And Kim has shown a keen interest in developing North Korea's tourism industry. And this particular area is called the Wonsan Kalma Coastal Tourist Area, and that's known to be a key focal point of Kim's. And there he is with his wife, and he attended a big inaugural ceremony. They say this tourist zone holds accommodation for nearly 20,000 people. sea bathing services, sports and recreational facilities. All right. I'm looking at it. It looks very nice. Okay. Would you guys going to go? Who knows? Maybe you'll never come out of that. Did you see the ship that sank into the ocean carrying 3,000 cars? Yeah, not great. The Morning Midas sank on Monday, June 23rd, around 5:30 p.m. This was about 450 miles southwest of Alaska. And it was transporting 3,048 vehicles, including 70 electric vehicles and 681 hybrid vehicles. It experienced a crew fire on June 3rd, and then 22 crew members abandoned the ship after they failed to put out the fire. So they're trying to figure out, like, they couldn't put it out. The Coast Guard, by the way, says there's been no visible indications of any pollution. Well, other than the ship and all the cars, I guess. And that's really all we know. They weren't able to put this out. It was in the middle of nowhere. So how are you going to fight a fire in the middle of the ocean? It's harder than it sounds, and they weren't able to do it. So that thing's gone. Let's see. Washington Post journalist busted in D.C. for allegedly possessing child porn. A Pulitzer Prize winning Washington Post journalist. 48-year-old video editor at Washington Post, Thomas Pham LeGros, was taken into custody on Thursday after FBI agents raided his Washington, D.C. home and discovered a folder on his work laptop which contained 11 videos depicting child sexual abuse material, the old CSAM. And, the faces never lie, you guys. I take one look at this guy and I'm like, yeah, he looks like a child molester. What else do I have to go here? I know. I'm sorry, guys. I know I feel like this has been a lackluster podcast, but honestly, a lot of this shit's kind of boring. What else? Cocaine is the fastest growing illegal drug in the world. New headline. Why? Well, because it's awesome. I'm kidding, kids. Don't do drugs. That's right. There are 316 million people around the world who've used illicit drugs as of 2023. Marijuana is the most used, followed by opioids and amphetamines. But it is the cocaine market that continues to break records. Global cocaine production reached a new high in 2023, racing to meet record demand. An estimated 25 million people used cocaine worldwide in 2023. That is up from 17 million a decade earlier. Worldwide cocaine production jumped by 34% from 2022. Wow. Yep. And cocaine, as you guys know, is primarily cultivated in Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia. It comes from the coca plant. And especially Colombia had a big increase because they expanded their coca cultivation area. Peru actually saw a slight decline. So in Colombia, they strip coca leaves by hand. They mix them with gasoline and other chemicals to produce bricks of coca paste. And then traffickers purchase that paste that is then processed into cocaine in labs across Latin America. North America, South America, and Europe remain the main markets, but record high cocaine production has allowed traffickers to expand into new regions like Africa and Asia. And all this comes, of course, with drug violence and everything else. Now, cocaine causes way fewer deaths and has less severe health effects than opioids. But, you can still be harmed. Cocaine has been used linked to heart disease, aggressive driving behavior, long-term developmental issues in babies when used in pregnancy. So 2 of those are avoidable. I do not condone cocaine use. Have I used it before? Yes. Yes, I have. Rarely. But no, cocaine's great. That's why you got to watch it. It'll creep up on you. Seizures of cocaine rose 13% since 2022 and 68% since 2019, but they can't curb the overall supply. They just basically displace trafficking routes, and then they figure out a new one. So there is no broad support for legalization, by the way, especially not here in the United States. Maybe they'll re-look at that one. Let's see. What else do I have to get to? Let's see here. I kind of talked about the injunction ruling already. That was a 6-3 vote, by the way. So yeah, I'm just going to leave that there because we all kind of get it. Mike Lee, I talked about this a little bit last week. This was the plan to sell public lands, and it got a huge pushback from a lot of right-wing conservatives who are, hunters, fishermen, stuff like that, and they don't like this. So Senator Mike Lee, though, Republican from Utah, wanted to sell millions of acres of federal land as part of Trump's big, beautiful bill, right? And these people started speaking out about it and didn't like it. His proposal would require the Bureau of Land Management to sell as much as 1.225 million acres of public property across the American West. Now, the proponents say this is because the region has a severe shortage of affordable housing and that developers could build new homes on these tracts. Well, again, I would say, why don't you deport all the illegal immigrants first? Now, a previous version called for not only BLM, but the U.S. Forest Service to sell between 2.2 million and 3.3 million acres. But the provision was stripped from the bill by the Senate's parliamentarian. It's the guy who enforces rules. And so he decided to shrink it, but it's still in there. And I kind of went off on this about last week, but I'm like, hey, listen, man. One, I kind of support what he's saying in theory because Mike Lee, if you listen to them, they're like, no, I'm only talking about land that's right outside of cities already and it's not being used for anything and nobody hunts on it or anything like that. But as I said last week, but you can't trust these people. When there's big money involved, you can't trust them. I don't trust them to just do on the outskirts of towns at all. And again, we who grew up here out west, we love our mountains. And we love our wide open spaces that are set aside. I don't know how common it is for you East Coast people, but for me, it's very common. I pull out my app that I have that marks BLM land, National Forest land, and I'll just pull over and crash in my car for a few days on National Forest land. You don't need a permit of any kind. It's open land. It's public land. It's for you, the public, the taxpayer. All these beautiful national parks we have in California. San Bernardino Mountains, Sequoia National Forest, John Muir Wilderness. I mean, everything you can think. Going up the magnificent Sierra Nevada. Lots of national forest land. It's beautiful. And if you look at a map of forest land and BLM land, the vast majority of it is west of the Mississippi. And like in Texas, almost all of it's privately owned. And their argument's always been like, well, private ownership will manage it better. But again, you can't trust any of these fucking people, so I don't support it. Quickly, I almost forgot. Ukraine and Gaza. Ukraine and Israel, Gaza, that whole thing. First of all, did you see the video of the 7 Israeli soldiers killed in Gaza? Yeah, fucking insane. Yeah, you could see a terrorist come up and just drop an explosive on one of these armored vehicles, but 7 soldiers being killed at once is the highest death toll in a single incident in Gaza for the Israeli military since the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas collapsed in March. It's crazy, dude. Yeah. Nothing good over happening there. And then this is a sad story. There was a family of 5 Ukrainians who were killed in Israel by one of those Iranian missile strikes. All 5 of them dead. They fled the country, the war in Ukraine, only to end up dead when an Iranian missile struck a residential building in the town of Bat Yam and it killed all 5 family members. Fucking talk about bad luck, dude. And then I talked about the mineral deal advancing last week, right? Well, we got a little hiccup here because Russian forces have now seized control of a valuable lithium deposit in that Donetsk region of eastern Ukraine. And that was to be part of that economic partnership with us, the United States. So now what happens to that? And it's pretty small. It's only 100 acres or so, but analysts said that that was one of Ukraine's most valuable sites for its rich concentration of lithium. And if you didn't know, lithium is essential for manufacturing electric batteries. So now what happens if the Russians are on top of it? Maybe they'll accidentally get some drones over there. This is a crazy story too. This so-called British man who's been arrested and charged because he wanted to have a wedding with a 9-year-old at Disneyland Paris. Fucking weirdo, dude. The British police have now said he is a convicted sex offender too, shockingly. Yes, he was detained in France. So the park staff didn't know that this bride was 9 years old. Like, they opened up, it was all planned, right? They opened up, and then the park staff see that it's a fucking 9 years old, and they quickly ended it and called the police. And the cops were called and determined that the wedding was, quote, a fictitious ceremony intended to be filmed privately, end quote, with fake guests. Did they see his name? He used a stolen Latvian identity and fake documents to book the event. He was professionally made up to show a face totally different from his own. How about that one? His profile and age fit the description, even though they didn't name him, the media kind of got a hold of it, of a convicted sex offender named Jackie Jahaj, Jahaj, who has conducted several public stunts in Britain, often involving fake events and hiring actors. So he's already been in prison once. 4 years for sexual activity with two 15-year-old girls. God, fucking freak show. Do I have any clips I want to play before I get out of here? Let me see here. What's this one? Oh, this is a pretty good one. So there's this guy, and I guess he's kind of a regular in the Beverly Hills area. And he goes into the grocery stores and he just causes like huge scenes. And he looks like Richard Simmons a little bit, you know, the exercise influencer. So I'm going to play one of the, I might play the other one too if I have time. Let's play this first one here. Let's listen to this.
Get off of my behavior and raise me for the anger you want.
Stop. Do this and get the fuck out of here, bro. Chill.
This has nothing to do with you.
Do this and get out of here.
Get the fuck out of my fucking face so that I can calm down and then get out of here.
I work here too, bro.
I don't care. Leave me the fuck alone so I may calm myself.
You gotta shut
to
up.
fucking do it.
Stop and leave, bro. Sir, it's okay. I got you. Just let him do his thing. You gotta get out of here, bro.
Thank you for the wisdom of get the fuck out of here so I can.
So this is...
I'll knock your ass out, boy. Sure.
Suck my dick.
Okay. So I guess is it the same Ralph's? If you know LA, it's on the corner of Beverly and Doheny Drive. And this guy comes in with the same Ralph's and has these meltdowns. Here's the same guy in a different video. Let's listen to this one.
Fuck you, well, use me.
Don't do it.
You're a fucking faggot.
Don't do it.
Film me all you want. Little dick coward fucking faggot.
I'll knock your ass out, boy.
Well, then you would be filming your own crime.
he's when he starts screaming, he's screaming at the place where you tap your credit card. What a fucking nut. Okay, and then guys, I think I'm gonna call it here. Like I said, it was kind of a slow news week, so thanks for hanging in there with me. So because of that, though, I have a twofer for the big finish for you. First of all, we go to Florida Man. Yes, always popular. And a 36-year-old Marion County, Florida man who claimed to be aroused by a cashier at a local Dollar General was arrested after he allegedly began masturbating inside the store. This is 8:30 in the morning. They called the cops because a man was, quote, clearly exposing his genitals, end quote, while exiting the store. They got the video surveillance, and it showed Jones, quote, digging into his pants and touching what appears to be his genitals, end quote. The report further stated that Jones's penis appeared to be erect, and he was allegedly moving his right arm in a, quote, stroking motion around his genital area, end quote. I guess he had approached a cashier shortly before he left, and the cashier told the sheriff's department that Jones had asked if she was single, and he allegedly attempted to get her phone number. Oh my God. Did he finish? Well, it's unclear. But the report did say that Jones admitted to the incident, and he said he masturbated because he was aroused by the cashier. And he allegedly mentioned that he has also masturbated in public on previous occasions due to, quote, random urges, end quote, that he gets. He is being charged with indecent exposure of sexual organs. Very good. And then this one, this was in the Hong Kong, the Hong Kong Daily. If I can stop this video from auto-playing, annoyingly. And the headline is that a man suffers a severe health risk after a 2-hour phone use session on a toilet. Well, what happened? Well, why does this fucking... Dude, stop. I'm looking at all the pop-ups here, and I'm trying to close them all out, and I'll just turn down the volume because I don't need it anymore because this annoying music is still playing. So what happened was a man decided to sit on the toilet. You're not supposed to do that for very long, right? Well, this guy sat on the toilet for 2 hours, scrolling aimlessly. Well, you know what he experienced? A prolapsed rectum. So this occurred, well, he showed up at the Henan Province Hospital, and the doctor from the hospital's proctology department attended to a 33-year-old male patient. They're not naming him. He experienced sudden abdominal pain and rectal bleeding during bowel movements, right? Upon examination, doctors discovered that his rectum had completely prolapsed outside the body with a 13-centimeter length of the intestine exposed. Oh, gross. Oh, no. 13 centimeter of exposed intestine, by the way, does indicate, for you non-medical types, a severe case of rectal prolapse. Yeah, this guy would routinely spend hours on the toilet using his phone for short videos and media clips, and has contributed to chronic conditions like hemorrhoids and rectal prolapse. I guess he's had rectal prolapse several times. And this time, he was very lucky to not have anything more severe happen, because actions as simply as coughing or straining could make the fucking intestines come out even more, and then they could tear, and now you got a colostomy bag and a whole mess of shit. So guys, kids, listen to your Uncle BK. Stay off the phone on the shitter. And that's all I got. 3 hours, a little over 3 hours, guys. No breaks, no editing, of course, as only the steel trap mind can accomplish. I hope you appreciated it, and if you do, please consider going to patreon.com. Type in BK Actual in the search bar, and why not pledge $1 or $2 a month to help keep the podcast going, you guys? I really appreciate it. And please, by all means, follow me on that Twitter account. Keep sending me all those great stories, you guys. Twitter is @BravoKiloActual. Instagram is @BKActual. I will announce on both of those platforms the upcoming podcast schedule. But for right now, I'm thinking Thursday night will be the next podcast. So short week break for me. And then after that, I'm not so sure. But I'll keep you informed. Yeah, I'm going to get out of here and get down the street fair, guys. That's all I got. I'll see you next week.